gaining. Then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising. Yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining. Then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising. Yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Teresa. Sometimes I'm gaining. Then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising. Yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining. Then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising. Yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Teresa.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and we have another sponsored stream. A major shout out goes to our brother, Serbian Slav Squat, for sponsoring today's stream. I hope you're present today. There he is. I see him in the chat. Here he is. Major thank you. Everybody give some appreciation to our brother, Serbian Slav Squat, for today's stream. Thank you very much, brother, for sponsoring it, in which we're going to be diving into the very strange and often filled with conspiracies, the world of CERN and the Large Hadron Collider, the particle accelerator there in Geneva, Switzerland, right on the border between France and Switzerland. And we're going to be asking what's really going on. And I have to say, I spent a considerable amount of time in prep for today's sponsored stream because I was very familiar with many of these theories. We're going to be getting into the God particle. Did CERN find the fundamental baseline of reality through their particle physics? We're going to get into wormholes. People are speculating that CERN is potentially opening up portals for entities to pass through. Is that really the case? CERN has a statue of the dancing Shiva outside. Now, Shiva is a very interesting symbol. He's the destroyer within what's referred to as the Trimurti of Hinduism. You have Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Leads many people to speculate regarding the symbolism of CERN. Why would they choose the destroyer god? Now, I'm going to get into what the official explanations are for all this stuff, but people even speculate about the logo of CERN. It very much looks like 3 6s. And so is CERN part of a beast system in which they're allowing what Jacob Frank, the Frankists would refer to as the Big Brother, Lucifer, Satan, demons? And so we're going to address some of those questions. I'm curious what you guys in the audience think. But for me, after diving into a lot of this stuff, I'm actually skeptical of the entire paradigm that CERN operates off of. And so I want to give you guys, I don't have much of an opening monologue. I'll tell you what we're going to be getting into today. But my little monologue is going to be me explaining how we got to the point of CERN. Did you guys know that CERN is a post-World War II production? CERN is essentially the foundation of what we refer to as big science, which, well, you could say the Manhattan Project was really the foundation. But because of the success of the Manhattan Project in creating the first 2 nuclear bombs that were dropped on Japan, this totally changed science. So my monologue is me talking about how did we move from the pre-modern world, which Orthodox Christianity is a part of, to the 21st century where people are speculating about CERN and how this may potentially create a black hole that's going to swallow up the whole Earth. Is that even possible? Do the quantum black holes that they produce even exert enough energy to engulf the whole planet? I actually suspect that they don't. And so what we're going to do for today's stream, I'm going to lay out the intellectual history because I am not a theoretical physicist, right? So we're going to play some videos of theoretical physicists debating the topic of string theory because that is really the linchpin of the research going on at CERN. CERN is essentially coming out of the field of quantum mechanics, quantum physics. And then within that realm, it is part of particle physics, focusing in the belief that particles will sort of unlock the ultimate mystery of the physical creation, of the physical world. And within that particle physicist world, they depend on what is called string theory, which is a theory of vibrating strings that unifies general relativity of Einstein with the quantum mechanics of the 1920s. And so the reason why string theory has really been so important for the last 50 years, although they've made essentially zero progress, the only progress string theory has made was the discovery of the Higgs boson in 2012, which is referred to as the God particle. But the God particle really isn't the God particle. It really has nothing to do with the foundation of reality. What the God particle is referring to, the Higgs boson, was the discovery of quantum gravity, or what they believe to be quantum gravity, or what's referred to as the Higgs field. So the God particle is a total misnomer because they don't even believe that it's the foundational particle. What they do believe is that it gives credence to the idea that there's a gravity field called the Higgs field. But that is the only progression that string theory has actually made in an experiment for the last 50 years. So does that really justify that string theory is true? Well, not really. Not really. So today's stream, we're going to do my little opening on the intellectual history of how we got to the point of big science, these international organizations, and the physics that underpins CERN and particle physics and all that different stuff. Then we're going to get into the conspiracy theories, because there's so many conspiracy theories surrounding CERN. And I'm not even here to dismiss them. Some of them I think, can be dismissed. Just diving into the research for this stream, there's only a couple physicists that support the claims, the more radical, contentious claims of CERN, that they're potentially conjuring entities, that there's a black magic. Now, there's a lot of weird symbolism, like the opening ceremony of CERN, which we're going to get into. The opening ceremony of CERN, some of the comments made by some of the prominent physicists over at CERN. But like transhumanism, I don't believe that AGI is even possible. I don't believe that you can even upload human consciousness to a simulacrum, a computer program, or some type of software. And even though I think those are incredibly dangerous and even explicitly demonic, the goals of the people developing these technologies, I don't think, are ever going to come to fruition. And the same thing is true for CERN. So we're going to listen to all the conspiracies, discuss them. Maybe I'll voice some of my skepticism regarding some of these more controversial claims regarding CERN. And then I want to get into a more of a philosophical debate around what CERN and string theory is posing, because it depends upon a multiverse theory, right? That's one of the things we're going to hear about these conspiracy theorists, is they're going to be talking about wormholes and demons and entities, but it's all based on the belief that there's multiple universes. There's indefinite universes. Well, I don't believe that's the case. So that's what part of what I want to do by taking a more philosophical approach is ask the questions from an Orthodox worldview, from a Christian worldview, even from a skeptical worldview. Is the project that CERN is moving forward on, is it even possible? Is it even going to come to anything? And in one way, you could say the ultimate black hole is the amount of money that these international organizations have dropped into CERN. Like I said, there's basically one major outcome of CERN. And CERN got developed in like 1954 after World War II. And that is really 2012, the Higgs boson. And after 2012, they haven't found, quantum symmetry. They haven't found the full quantum gravity. It's all mathematics, right? This is the thing that we're really up against. And part of what I want to highlight regarding the intellectual history is physics in its early, in its more rudimentary and elementary states, was couched within a Christian pre-modern worldview. And so the studying of physical phenomenon and trying to uncover laws or the regularities of nature, there's nothing wrong with that. You can still totally have a traditional Christian worldview. But we'll see that the focus from the universal being the theology, the universal being the church, that gets transformed into the focus on the particular. By the time we get to the scientific revolution, knowledge now is associated with doing things, making things, and studying physical phenomenon. But once we get into the 20th century, and really at the end of the 19th century, what do we see? A transition from physics doing actual physical experiments to mathematics. And that's where we're at right now. Physics is really a debate amongst abstract theories of mathematics. There's very little actual physical experimentation being done because the whole thing is theoretical, right? And even particle physics, string theory is just one theory within quantum mechanics, quantum physics. But because, as we'll note towards the latter half of the stream, because that has been the official position of the institutions, Edward Witten, one of the prominent Jewish physicists who is kind of behind the popularization of string theory. We're going to listen to Eric Weinstein, also another a Jewish mathematician, talk about the problem with string theory is that it's essentially the dogma of the institutions itself. So we're going to be getting into all this stuff. I have a document that's also going to be available over on the Logos Academy, and really I did sort of categorize all the conspiracies that I came across in preparation for today's video. So it's a very basic introduction to what CERN and the LHC is, the Large Hadron Collider is, stuff that you guys probably already familiar with. And then I list all the conspiracies about what is potentially going on there. And then I get into why there's so many contradictions within CERN, within string theory, within modern quantum mechanics and these various enterprises that are going on that is really not even something to be fully worried about. In many regards, particle physics has already been surpassed, right? If you're looking at the field of science right now, what are the hot topics? Well, it's AGI. It's the development of AI systems. It's biotechnologies. It's digital technologies. It's even digital money. Like particle physics was really a hot topic, in the 1980s, 1990s. And they thought that this creating CERN and the Large Hadron Collider was going to then break through. But in a way, you could argue that science has kind of already moved. The other fields have surpassed particle physics. And even if you were to grant the goal of particle physics, which is to come to the ultimate baseline of the material world, because the presupposition is that particles are the basic foundational structure, well, it doesn't really explain why. How did we get here? How do we live our lives? What does it all mean? They can't explain any of that. And so it's so funny to see when you look at the history of physics move from like very particular experiments. I mean, even with people like Isaac Newton to now with Michio Kaku and Brian Cox and the fake astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's all abstract. It's all mathematical equations. NASA's photos. You ask NASA, hey, produce me a photo that isn't digitally altered. Well, they don't really have any. And I'm not saying that those photos aren't real, but when it comes to something tactile, notice how so many of the big enterprises, it's just major abstractions that you really can't even grab onto. And that's the same for the state of physics right now. It's all mathematical. It's all mathematical equations. It's about abstract concepts and the debating of which system do people think are better, with very little appeal to actual experimentation. So how did we get here? How does science get to the point that it's at now? When we're talking about a pre-modern worldview, I've discussed this so many times, essentially from the ancient period up to, generally speaking, the Reformation, the 1500s. Everybody believed that the universe was created ex nihilo, that the universe, at least from the Christian point of view, had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Just like your life, just like every physical thing, every particular you've come across in your life will eventually not exist. And so Christianity believed, well, that's just the nature of reality itself. Everything comes to an existence, it has a peak, and then it gradually declines until it no longer exists. Now, you could talk about the ancient Greeks. They believed in a cyclical universe, and this is one of the reasons why I would argue that modern science, whether it be Fitra Copra or CERN, how they always appeal to Hinduism. Why do they always appeal back to Hinduism? Well, Hinduism is a cyclical worldview. Hinduism argues that if you know the exterior of the world, then you'll know the interior of your own life. And if you're a physical reductionist, that means if I can know the ultimate understanding of the quantum subatomic particles, well, then somehow I can know what the basis of the interior life of the human being is, or something like that. This is what Capra said in an interview I watched in preparation for today. It's like, what? But how does quantum mechanics tell you about the inside of your own subjective experience? Anyways, I digress. But for the pre-modern world, creation had a beginning, and creation had a creator. That was God. Nature reflected a rational order, the Logos, right? The second person of the Trinity, Jesus Christ. He is the rational, metaphysical, undergirding structure of our experience itself of the physical world. And scientific inquiry was understood as studying God's creation. You see, Christianity is not against science. If your worldview thinks that science disproves it, you must have a very weak worldview. From an Orthodox Christian perspective, there's nothing wrong with science. Inductive measures, the scientific method, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. However, once we get into the scientific revolution, so that's kind of the pre-modern worldview. Once we get into the scientific revolution, which generally speaking is kind of the mid of the 16th century, ending somewhere around the 1700s, we see Copernicus, we see Galileo, we see Isaac Newton, and they introduced the idea that mathematical laws govern motion and matter throughout the entire universe. That was a novel idea. Mathematic laws. Oh, if we want to know nature, we need to study mathematics. Now, at this point, during the scientific revolution, physics was still doing physical experimentations in tandem with these mathematical equations. And so Newton himself, as we know, was deeply religious. He didn't believe that I'm not saying he was Orthodox per se. There's a lot of speculation about some of the Masonry or some of the secret societies he may have been tangentially related to, but he was very much into revelation. It was very much eschatological. I wrote about this in my book, Return to Babylon from Adam to Antichrist, the ultimate Christian critique of transhumanism, and how his worldview contributed, and how he was he was very much an apocalypticist. He viewed what he was doing with science as leading towards the end of history. But he was still very religious. But you see, that was kind of the scientific revolution period. So you still have religion and you have science. The novelty is now the belief that mathematics can actually give you understanding. For Copernicus, the heliocentric cosmos. For Galileo, it had to do with, astronomy and mathematics mapping the stars. And with Newton, it had to do with mapping the laws that govern matter itself. Once we get into the Enlightenment, 1700 to 1800, generally speaking, again, these aren't hard and fast dates, but you see the introduction of deism, right? Deism begins to exist. Now God is no longer the central protagonist of history. Man is. You see, God creates creation, and like a clock, the famous analogy that the deists use, he lets the clock run, right? And so God really is no longer involved in creation until the end of the clock. Once the clock stops working, that's when time ran out and God comes back. This was the general sentiments of deism. And so they promoted this idea that God created the universe, yes, but the universe really runs according to these natural laws, these laws that can be mapped by mathematics. And so moving next to the next century, the 1800 to 1900, the 19th century, we see the rise of scientific materialism. This is the transition where religion, the concept of God, the whole metaphysical framework that Christianity was built upon begins to really be swept away and replaced with physics, with science. And so I say the rise of scientific materialism. Another way you could say is the rise of scientism, a religious belief in science. And so materialism holds that matter and energy are the fundamental realities. All phenomena are ultimately through physical processes. And this is during the time in which we get new equations for the laws of thermodynamics, we get electromagnetic theory, and of course during this century is the rise of Darwin. So we get evolutionary theories about biology, about how the human species get here. Notice with all three of these novelties that emerged during this century, God really isn't important. And in fact, this is creating a catalyst for the belief that man essentially is his own God, and we are coming to ultimate knowledge claims about the universe without any appeal back to tradition or religion or anything like that. And so once we enter in the 20th century, this is where the full transition really happens. Once we enter the 20th century, we see Einstein's theory of relativity take off somewhere between 1905 to 1915. And in conjunction with that, by the time of the 1920s, we see the rise of quantum mechanics. And ironically, these discoveries undermined the deterministic worldview that scientific materialism previously held. And it still was undermining the Christian metaphysics in which the entirety of Western civilization was built upon. And so these new theories interpreted within naturalistic philosophy rather than theological frameworks, fully by the 20th century, have no longer an appeal to any sort of theological foundation. And so the mid-20th century is really where we get the modern enterprise of science that we now exist in. This is big science. This is big backing, right? It isn't until the 1950s forward, as again, CERN was created in 1954 in the wake of World War II. Why? Because the idea was instead of the Germans developing their own science, the British doing their own thing, the Russians doing their own thing, the Americans doing their own thing, they thought, well, to avoid any sort of technological outracing of the other nations, we're going to create these international scientific conglomerates. Well, the top scientists of all these nations will do the science together. And that's what was the impetus for CERN. And so we see in the mid-20th century, for the first time, government research programs, massive government research. Well, what gave them this idea? It was the success of the Manhattan Project. It's the success of the Manhattan Project. So by the mid-20th century, we see massive government research programs. We see new military technology. Again, because the Manhattan Project was so successful and they were able to develop these nuclear bombs without the word essentially getting out of Los Alamos, well, they thought, well, geez, we need to create more of these projects. We need to do more training and advancement of military technology. And so this led to these large scientific institutions, which is exactly where CERN comes out of. And so the goal was to assume that ultimate explanation of reality can be found in a complete set of physical laws. That was their basic operating presupposition. And once we get to the end of the 20th century, moving into the 21st century, now the problem is, okay, how do we, if the world is only material, and we have Einstein's theory of relativity, and we have quantum mechanics, where do we go now? How do we reconcile this? How do we get to the next level of truth if you're approaching this sort of secular physicist approach? Well, they developed theories like string theory, multiverse theory, quantum gravity theory. And so critics like ourselves would argue that modern physics now operate in a purely mathematical paradigm. It's not the physics of Newton anymore. It's not the physics of Galileo. This is a physics that is purely mathematical. And it's abstract. It's entirely abstract. That's why, for me, what's going on at CERN isn't really that concerning, because I don't think there's much there. That's why they've invested $10 billion to build the damn thing. And they've invested billion more dollars since. And the only thing they got was the Higgs boson, which for them, they thought this was the crown jewel because it means that there is a Higgs field of gravity regarding quantum gravity. But that's it. That's the only advancement they've had in 50 years. And so even if we were to grant them that quantum physics, that what they're doing at CERN, that string theory is real, all this different stuff, they still can't answer questions about human purpose or even the purpose of why it's important. They can't answer questions about ultimate meaning, and they can't answer questions about divine causation, because what are we told that CERN is doing? Well, CERN is taking us back to the point before the Big Bang. Really? How do they know that? Were they there? They were at the Big Bang? Really? No. So even the environment for the LHC and the experiments going on at CERN are still within a theoretical realm. They don't know. They don't know what the universe was like during the Big Bang. And of course, I don't even believe in the Big Bang. I believe in creationism. I believe that we have a creator God. And so because of all these developments, physics is essentially stagnant. Physics is being surpassed by digital technologies, by AI, by biotechnology. I mean, essentially everything that Elon Musk is investing in and working on has surpassed what was the crown jewel of physics, particle physics, from the 1950s forward. So that is a little bit about how we got here. And I think that's important for understanding, from an Orthodox perspective, what they're doing shouldn't really even be that scary. Because for us, our hierarchy of knowledge begins with spiritual knowledge. Right? This is why a monk who's totally uneducated can, from our perspective, know more about the world than some quantum physicist, Brian Cox, or whoever who's been studying these stuff for his entire adult life. Because our hierarchy begins with spiritual knowledge and then metaphysical, philosophical. Then we get into the scientific, the material. And so what they're doing, even if they were to come to know everything about the material world, they're still devoid of a full metaphysical understanding of how all this stuff. That's why their paradigms, they totally contradict, which I'm going to highlight to you today. But then they also have no spiritual knowledge, which if the world is created by a God, which we of course believe, well then what's the ultimate point? Where do they think they're ultimately going with all this physicist and their experimentation? Not very far. Not very far. So smash that like, guys. We're going to dive much deeper into all this stuff. And again, a major thank you to Serbian Slav Squat for sponsoring today's stream. God bless you, brother. I really appreciate your support. Forgiven Doomer throws in 7, says, thank you for your consistent work. Happy to see sharp men with a passion put in work for Christ and his Holy Orthodox Church. Well, thank you very much, brother. Please pray for me. I can always use more prayers, but I do appreciate the support. Oh, my brother Wicked Wally, he throws in 5, says, someone proposed a theory to me, but they never fully explained it and just kind of strung me along. I guess it was a string theory. There you go. There you go. I knew there was a punchline in it somewhere. So Wicked Wally says, someone proposed a theory to me, but they never fully explained it, and it just kind of strung me along. I guess it was a string theory. Absolutely. Can we all get an applause for Wicked Wally as the #1 dad joke comedian this side of the Atlantic? I don't even know if there's anyone that competes on the other side of the Atlantic. But I know for sure within the continental United States, no one has better dad jokes than Wicked Wally. So God bless you, brother. I hope you and the lady are doing well. Chair throwing Italian throws in 5, says, I've got a buddy big into this. He thinks that CERN found, quote, the energy released on death, a.k.a. the soul. He loves the science. Yeah, no, they haven't. They haven't, okay? And it's really, the far as I would go is I don't know exactly what happens when they create these little black holes and stuff, but I'm very skeptical of the whole thing because I think it's built on premises that haven't really become true, and that's why they've essentially in a cul-de-sac of thought for the last 50 years. People claim that the God particle. Well, I just dove into the God particle for the last 2 days, and it doesn't really mean anything about God or even a full explanation of the project they're on. And so I went on TikTok. I'm going to show you TikTok videos. You go on TikTok, everybody and their mother thinks that CERN is bringing about the beast, the Antichrist is coming through, these portals, that the God particle, that they have antimatter, the movie Angels and Demons, Dan Brown novel. It's the sequel to the Da Vinci Code with Tom Hanks. I was looking into, they don't even have the ability to gather enough antimatter. The whole premise of the movie Angels and Demons, they can't even do that yet. And, I think Dan Brown, if you look into his books, most of it, what it's trying to do is resolve the dialectic between science and religion. And so I think he created an interesting narrative having religious implications. I mean, do we really think that the globalists are going to gather this antimatter to destroy the Vatican? We really think the Vatican's on the other side of the globalist? I mean, but there is strange things going on. I mean, you look at the opening ritual of CERN, and it's clearly demonic. You look, and CERN in Switzerland is tied with the WEF, the World Economic Forum. It's tied with these globalist international scientific communities. If you ask what the aims are from a lot of these physicists at CERN, it's very, very much going to be in line with the general globalist ethos. So, do I think there is potentially nefarious intentions? Yeah, it could be. At the same time, I don't think the science is there. I'm just skeptical of the whole thing myself. Now, maybe some of you guys will convince me otherwise, and I'm open to that. I am open to that. But I really don't feel that CERN is at, a big one that I saw people saying is that it opened a pit to hell. That CERN has opened some type of trans-dimensional portal in which the entrapped souls or created noetic entities known as demons are able to pass through into our world. I'm not sure. I will say this. Another one is the Mandela effect. I don't even know what to think about that because I'm convinced that it was Berenstain Bears. And in my memory, for some reason, I see Sinbad in the movie Shazam. So I even have a document on 50 Mandela effects because that's another one is that some people argue, whether it be, some argue that it's 2012, that the Higgs boson aligned with the Aztec calendar. Remember, Terence McKenna believed that we were going to reach the end of history in the year 2000. Unfortunately for him, he ended up passing away in April of 2000. But, of course, that was on his I Ching analysis of the Chinese calendar and the Aztec mythology and all that different stuff. Didn't come true. Well, some people speculate because the Higgs boson was found in 2012, which was the apocalyptic date of the Aztec calendar, that it changed our timeline, that we moved from the current timeline we're on to a new timeline, and this is what accounts for the Mandela effect. I'm skeptical of that myself. I'm skeptical that that's even possible over at CERN, but I will say this. All these examples of the Mandela effect do get me because I swear I remember the thing that they said never exists. We'll get into all that stuff in just a moment. But chair throwing Italian, I could totally see it. And here's the thing about believing in some of these larger conspiracies about CERN is you have to depend on the idea that there's a multiverse. Right. Most of the people I heard, now there's I have one video of a man who's referencing the book of Revelation and all these different things from a Christian perspective, but many of them are sort of New Agers. because they believe in the multiverse theory. Because for string theory and for this portal theory, right, the idea that CERN is opening these wormholes, these portals, depends on the presupposition that there's multiple dimensions in the first place or that there's multiple universes. I'm open to the idea that there's other dimensions. You know, from an Orthodox worldview, we wouldn't really use that language. We would say that there's the physical world, the created world, and then there's eternity, which is a noetic realm that we have access to through our nous. That would be kind of the Christian framework. But again, if you're a Christian and then you start going down these conspiracies and then you start thinking, oh my God, what if we're actually on a different time? Well, you've already violated some of the foundational presuppositions of your Christian worldview. Because if there is a multiverse, one, it's unknowable. Two, it doesn't explain anything, right? That's one of the problems with these particle physicists is they've said, well, you know what, string theory? It has to do with, it's a multi-universe theory. Well, okay, well, if that's the case, that explains nothing about this world. So notice that multiverse theory has zero explanatory power other than a narrative, right? It's not connected with any sort of fact in the world. Like, show me a fact I can taste, touch, or feel. It's not attached to any of that. Multiverse is just a narrative for explanation that can never be proven. Because you're going to go to another timeline? You're going to go to these other dimensions and come back to tell us about it? Of course not. And it says nothing about the world that we live in. That's why even this is secular other physicists, other physicists within quantum mechanics say the multiverse theory is totally stupid because it tells us nothing about the world that you claim you're trying to explain to us. And it's like, I'm going to explain to you this world. There's infinite worlds. It's like, okay, well, even if that's true, that told me nothing about this world that you said you're going to explain. That's kind of the problem that these guys keep falling into. Tricia throws in 5, says, glory to God for all things. Good to see you, Doc. Learning so much from your channel about so much that many won't even acknowledge. Trish, well, thank you very much, Trish, for the support. I do appreciate it. God bless you, sister. Austin DeTulio throws in 10. That's right, codal taxes. It's time to tithe, people. There you go. Josiah said it right. Paying my tithe, brother. God bless you. Well, thank you so much. Austin DeTulio, Josiah Elleron. Was able to meet both those gentlemen in November when we went to DebateCon and then down to the Florida conference. So really appreciate your guys' friendship. Thank you so much for the support. And TWHO throws in 10, says, hi, brother. Can you do a show focused on theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, astrophysics, and the relationship with Jewish mysticism / Kabbalistic doctrines of the Zohar, please? If someone sponsors something like that, I might dive into it. I did plan on doing a stream in the future. I got so many streams to get through. And these sponsored streams usually take me a couple days to wrap my whole mind around the topic so I can even present it. But I was going to do one on Jacob Frank and the Sabbateans. I thought that would be an interesting, and basically do a stream on, hey, did you guys know that there was a Jewish Messiah that already came? Let me explain it to you guys. I figured that would probably play well with TOS. I shouldn't violate TOS by just explaining a historical phenomenon of a Jewish Messiah who ends up converting to Islam. So I plan on maybe doing that one in the future, but for example, some of the scientific explanations of the spiritual world, I just don't even agree with. Right? Like regarding CERN, we'll get into it today, but I don't need, wormholes to talk about higher dimensions or a parallel existence. I already believe in angels and demons. I believe that my nous, my noetic faculty, the imagination, the mind, is already in a place that's not exactly here within space and time. So I think one of the problems, if we try to use modern physics or modern scientific jargon to explain our spirituality, we end up explaining a worldview that devoids us from a possibility of an incarnate God. If there's a multiverse, there's a huge epistemic problem then. The knowability of knowledge itself, the knowability of this universe. Can we know this universe, or is everybody on different timelines? So there's there's major philosophical questions. So, but Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, I've done streams on that before. Maybe a deep dive would be beneficial for people. I'm not sure. Snagglebeast, been a Codal Crew member for 25 months. God bless you, brother. He says, Blessed Lent. Blessed Lent to you, my man. Octavian throws in 10, says, string theory will string you along into the trans-homoverse. Yeah, pretty much. The way a string vibrates determines what kind of particle it appears as. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a great point. I mean, yeah, we're going to get into it all today. I mean, string theory is essentially, it's like a academic mob. They actually don't prevent new theories of physics to actually emerge right now. Jet throws in 2, no comment. Thank you so much, Jet. And Twaho throws in another 2, says, okay, I'll sponsor it. How? You sponsor it through this link here. In fact, here, let me just bring up my links, if I can get them. So if you'd like to sponsor a stream, you can do so with this link right here. And I already have a handful of sponsored streams, so do realize it's going to be a couple weeks before I get to them. I'm going to be doing 2 sponsored streams this week. This one is one. Tomorrow morning, we're doing a celebration of St. Patrick's Day where I'm going to read some lives of Celtic saints. Wednesday, I'll probably take off. Thursday, I was going to do a stream on the life of a monastic monk on Mount Athos. So talking about monastic asceticism, the life of a monk, stuff like that. That might be Thursday or Friday. But we got new news coming on with the war in Iran, things going on. So I may have to do a drama alert this week. But my goal was to get at least 2 sponsored streams done this week if I can. But if you'd like to sponsor a stream, please do so with that link. Also, just a reminder, guys, we have a think tank tomorrow night at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at the Logos Academy, where we are going to be doing a private discussion on eschatology, the war with Iran, updates, conversations that maybe the TOS on YouTube could be unfavorable towards. So we're going to be doing a private, no-holds-bar group conversation. It's not a lecture. This is a group of men that get together and we just talk about topics. So if you would like to get access to that and join us tomorrow night, along with everything else that's offered at the Logos Academy, please join us. We'd love to have you there. And then if you're interested in my book, given that today is sort of a sciencey topic, The Ultimate Christian Takedown of Transhumanism, I'll be shipping out, I got a handful of signed copies. I'll be shipping all those out tomorrow at UPS. So if you purchase a book today or tonight, I'll get that signed and it'll be in the mail tomorrow is my goal. So, and if you prefer a cheaper, Amazon. And don't forget, if you're into peptides, use promo code COTEL, CODAL, and you'll get high quality peptides. Big fan of BPC 157. They're a little bit expensive. They are higher quality, but use promo code COTEL, COTEL. Same with OrthodoxDepot.com. If you're interested in Orthodox crosses, study Bibles, incense, prayer ropes, whatever it may be, you can get those there. Use promo code COTEL, COTEL, and you'll get a discount. So thank you, Twaho. I really appreciate it. Hope you end up sponsoring a stream. And ID Bro throws in 5, says, thank you for even doing sponsored streams, man. Well, thank you very much, ID Bro. I do appreciate it. Yeah, sometimes there's other topics I'd like to do a stream on, and so these are a little bit more time consuming because they take so much. Because it's not something I may be familiar with. This one I had to really refresh myself on quantum mechanics, the terminology, the history of CERN, particle physics, all that different stuff. So it takes a minute just to get the vocabulary back. Serbian Slav Squad just donated over on Dono Chat. This is the sponsor for today's stream. Major thank you to Serbian Slav Squad. He says, thanks for covering this, DPH. CERN is one of the big hoax, but I think they still have some dark Kabbalistic motives behind the whole thing. Yeah, I totally think it's indicative. That's where, to me, regarding the demonic element of CERN and all that stuff, is it's in lockstep with the globalist modernist project itself. Right? So it is demonic in the sense that it thinks it's going to come to ultimate conclusions by studying particles that, nanoparticles, subatomic particles that they slam together at the speed of light. No, that's not how. You're not going to find the mystery of the universe by smashing particles together. And to your point, Serbian Slav Squad, remember that the scientific movement itself comes out of alchemy, right? Science, especially after the English the English Civil War, rather, after the English Civil War, when they founded the Royal Society, science was a way to do away with all the esoteric, occultic elements of where science was actually emerging from. So all that hermetic, Kabbalistic, alchemical lore that surrounded science, they had to push that down. They had to secularize it. That's where most of that stuff went into the Freemasonic lodges of speculative Freemasonry. But because of that point, what are one of the major achievements that CERN had? Well, the Large Hadron Collider did neutron bombardment of lead and turned it into gold. Very interesting. That was the dream of the alchemist, right? Turning lead into gold. Now, alchemy, that was used symbolically to talk about the transmutation of one's baser self into divine refinement, if you will. But the same thing is true. I mean, CERN, it's funny that CERN is the fulfillment of the ancient alchemical dream of turning a base metal into gold. They actually did that. They did that using neutron bombardment. So it's still in line with the history of alchemy, with that whole, as you're talking about, the sort of Kabbalistic undertones. But yeah. Anyways, let's get into it today. So first thing I want to talk to you guys about is let's just listen to all these conspiracies. Let's just listen to a video of someone just giving us all the conspiracies about CERN and see where we go from there. So this is a,
what's that? Oh.
This is a TikTok video.
What's that?
Okay, ready?
What the heck?
What's that?
Oh, strange experimentation. They are being.
Okay, so here's this video. We're going to turn it up. This little video is one that I found that basically describes all the theories about CERN. Then we'll get into what it is and more like that. And then we're going to get into some deeper videos. You see, I got tons of videos here. Tons of videos. So I'm not endorsing them, but here is the presentation of many of the conspiracies regarding CERN and their particle accelerator.
Portals coming.
And this woman right here, so there's basically two physicists that I've heard kind of speak about these conspiracies. She is one of them. And she's referring back to quotes from some of the leading physicists at CERN talking about the potential for us to find something through these black holes. Something may come through. Now, it's not clear whether they're referring to a particle, are they referring to information, are they referring to entities, demons, beings? It's kind of ambiguous, but she is a physicist who is claiming that they are potentially opening wormholes. So just giving you that context.
In and out.
Beings coming in and out of portals.
Yes, they have apparently in the bottom of the CERN this portal, this door where they are dealing with all the subatomic dimensions.
She's not the only one talking about this. If you've seen the latest video, you know Dan Burish has been saying the same thing.
They are from the future, 45,000 years ahead of
45,000 years ahead on a separate timeline than what we are presently on.
People from the
So there you go. That was a microbiologist that I found. So that is what it was referred to.
future, 40.
What's his name? I looked up this video. They messed up our timeline. I found the video. It's by Dan Bursich, and he is a microbiologist who claims that aliens exist, that he's done government contracts with extraterrestrials, and he claims that he knows for a fact that aliens from 4,500 years into the future from another timeline are coming through these portals at CERN. So take that with a grain of salt, whatever you want to make of it. but this is one of the other accredited scientists that is used to talk about some of these theories.
This video, you know Dan Burish has been saying the same thing.
They are from the future, 45,000 years ahead of
45,000 years ahead.
Oh, 45,000 years ahead, not even 4,500. 45,000 years ahead, okay? So it almost sounds like the Al Bielek. I don't know if you guys got into Al Bielek. I did a stream back in the day. I was really big into Al Bielek in my early 20s. The whole Montauk Project, all that different stuff. But come on, 45,000 years into the future, these aliens are coming through the CERN portals?
On a separate timeline than what we are presently on.
People from the future coming through open portals. I can't even wrap my mind around it. And now, to hear a CERN insider saying it out loud. But here's what's more disturbing.
When you look at what is going on in the CERN, there is a fight from some of the military agencies. Intel, they say that there is a fight on time. They're trying to change time.
Trying to change time or changing timelines. The question was there. Tinkerbell did dot the I in the Disney intro. Pikachu's tail...
So he's highlighting the Mandela effect, right? This idea that we've switched timelines and all these things that we remember, which, fair enough, like Pikachu. I remember the end of his tail being black for some reason. That's what I remembered. It will get into. I got a whole document on mandala effects that we're going to go through, but I remember some of that stuff. I'm not claiming that it's CERN or even that it's fully real. Maybe it's a false memory, a collective false memory we have. I don't know, but that's what he's referring to, is that CERN, their research, their experiments moved us to a new timeline. That is what accounts for the Mandela effect.
Had a black tip, but now they say it was never there. And there are dozens of examples just like this, and every single one of them messes with my head. Lately, I feel something is off. Something is wrong with time itself. I can feel it. And I know a lot of you can feel it too. I have this feeling that time is broken. It passes too fast, even if I stay and do nothing for an entire day. Okay, I know there are some scientific explanations for that, but what about the Mandela effect? How do you explain that? This is why I had to make a part 2. To put it all together, this CERN insider talking about portals and beings coming in and out, this feeling that time itself may be broken, the Mandela effects, and all these unanswered questions and doubts about what CERN is really doing. While researching this video, I came across someone named Frank Jacob, who says,
I thought I'd do an impromptu report on something which I think is giving people a lot to be concerned about. The investigative journalist Miriam Hanine recently published an article entitled "CERN Erupts Over Portals, Particles and the Large Hadron Collider."
So I followed the link shown below, and surprise, it looks like the article was deleted. Interesting. A journalist writes an article raising concerns about CERN, and the article can't be found anymore. I searched everywhere on...
Well, she wasn't just writing an article about CERN, like they took it down to censor her. She wrote arguing that they were opening portals, and maybe, just maybe, her editor said, hey, can you verify that stuff? And she said, no, I'm just seeing it online, and maybe they took the story down. So just because the story's down, which I looked it up, it is still down. It's not up. But it doesn't mean that her, whatever she said, which we don't know, about portals means that it's real. That doesn't logically follow.
Their site. Nothing. But I did find it eventually in the web archive, and what it said shook me more than I expected. Let me explain what was in that article, because this is where it gets very, very interesting. All of this comes from the investigative journalist Miriam Hanine. First, you need to understand what's happening at CERN. It's very important. 10 years after discovering the Higgs boson, the so-called God particle, CERN's Large Hadron Collider started smashing protons together at energy levels we've never seen before. Their stated goal? To reveal more secrets about how the universe works. Let's talk about what this machine actually is. The LHC is the world's largest and most powerful particle collider. It's a circular tunnel, nearly 17 miles long, buried 574 feet underground along the border between Switzerland and France. After a 3-year upgrade, it was fired back up in April 2022, and on July 5th of that year, it began a new experiment running 24/7. For the next 4 years, at a record energy of 13.6 trillion electron volts. That's slightly higher than its previous record. They'll collect data, then shut down again in 2026 for another 3-year upgrade, before starting up once more in 2029. The price tag so far? $9.2 billion. The process sounds like science fiction. They take 2 beams of protons, the particles in the nucleus of the atom, and shoot them in opposite directions around this 17-mile ring at almost the speed of light. Then they make them collide. These collisions are recorded by massive detectors with names like Atlas, CMS, ALICE, and LHCb. Thousands of scientists will analyze the debris, hoping to find clues about dark matter, dark energy, and what the article calls other fundamental mysteries. And almost immediately, they started finding things. Early in Run 3, CERN reported the observation of 3 new exotic particles. The article explains these could help reveal how the most fundamental building blocks of matter, called quarks, bind together.
Okay. This is getting, again, it all leads to nothing, because as my point, and I just saw that Harry Serpanos said the exact same thing over on Streamlabs I said in the opening. They found the Higgs boson, right, which for them was essential for them finding the Higgs field, which gives particles mass, right? They had to figure out how do various particles get mass. And they claimed, well, it's the Higgs field. And the Higgs boson experiment in 2012, they claimed they found the field. However, they were supposed to find supersymmetry, which they did not find. So the idea that they can actually, that the string theory, that the multiverse, that all these things that they're positing, they haven't found anything to prove it. The only linchpin, the only thing that they have is the Higgs boson, or what they refer to as the Higgs field, which could be just misinterpreted, right? Because this is all built on mathematical equations and presuppositions of what they're looking at. And so Harry Serpanos, I want to read his quote, because he said he summarized very succinctly what I was trying to lay out in the opening. He says, DPH, don't fall for any of this BS. I won't, brother. Trust me. He says, what CERN proved by 2014 that they couldn't find supersymmetry. Yes, exactly. And without supersymmetry, the atheist nonsense of string theory and multiverse isn't possible. So they disproved their own nonsense. That's exactly the case, but they haven't stopped. They haven't stopped since.
Should have created equal amounts of both, but it didn't. Our universe is made almost entirely of matter. That imbalance, as the article plainly states, has no explanation. We exist because of a cosmic typo that no one can explain. In 2018, CERN scientists figured out how to trap it and transport it from one facility to another. The amount they moved, according to the article, had an energy equivalent of about 20 Hiroshima bombs. The research here is mind-bending. They're testing whether antimatter reacts to gravity the same way matter does. This is a fundamental question. If it doesn't, it would break one of Einstein's core principles. Recent results, the article notes, show that within strict boundaries, it does fall the same way. But the search continues. All this research leads to an even bigger idea, one that feels like it's taken from a sci-fi book. The article quotes a theory. Let me read that part directly.
Probably because it was taken from a sci-fi book.
From the article. Though it may sound like science fiction, if extra dimensions exist, they could explain why the universe is expanding faster than expected and why gravity is weaker than other forces of nature. The search for extra dimensions is not science fiction. It is a legitimate, active area of research in
theoretical physics. Here's the problem, though. I looked it up. I spent, I did multiple internet searches trying to find proof of multiple dimensions, because according to Michio Kaku, there's 11 dimensions. According to another physicist I listened to from CERN, he claims there's 17 dimensions. So I was curious, which one is it? Is it 11 dimensions or is it 17 dimensions? So I started scouring for research on proof of multiple dimensions, and guess what I found? Zero proof for any other dimensions. The only dimension that we have proof of is called space-time, where we're in right now. And so all these other dimensions, whether it be 17 or 11, it's based on the mathematical model of the physicist. So it depends on which school of mathematical equations you're operating in determines, well, how many dimensions do we have to make this somewhat coherent? So while you're listening to this video, realize that, okay, he's talking about multi-dimensions. There's a quote from a scientist that said, it sounds science fiction, but if there were multiple universes, well, then maybe that's why there's fluctuations and why we can't explain anything in this universe. That really has very little explanatory power. And realize that there is no concrete physical evidence. There's no experiment at CERN. There's no experiment at any other laboratory on this planet that demonstrated that there's multiple dimensions. The best you have is the double slot experiment, which is just about probability between wave and particle and how observation may affect things. But when it comes to the multiverse theory, it's all mathematics. It's all mathematics. There's no physical evidence for any of it.
Physics. CERN's stated mission is to search for evidence of them. But then, the article makes a pivot. After laying out this high-level science, it states, unfortunately, the public is not fully aware of the full potential of CERN as it relates to interdimensional communication. And from this point, the tone of this article shifts. It moves from reporting on science to examining symbols, rituals, and unanswered questions. So please, stay with me. It gets really, really interesting. It mentions CERN's logo, which some say contains the number 666, founded in 1950.
And that's fair enough. It is a strange logo. I should have looked up what the actual explanation from CERN is for the logo, but it is strange. It does kind of look like 3 6s. Which, remember we talked about Jared Kushner in the last Drama Alert and how obsessed he was with getting that building in Manhattan, building number 666. So some strange stuff, but again, let's move forward.
By 12 European countries, CERN later expanded to more than 20 member states. It is also where the World Wide Web was invented in 1989.
That is true. So the internet was developed by DARPA, as we know, 1960s U.S. government. But the World Wide Web actually was invented by a scientist over at CERN for the purpose of allowing the sharing of documents, research documents amongst the scientists. So that is true.
And it describes an event in 2016, a ceremony for the opening of the Gotthard Base Tunnel in Switzerland. That ceremony was very weird. I won't go into details here to keep this video safe. You can look into it later if...
I'm going to show you that video. So I'm going to show you that opening ritual of CERN. Very demonic, explicitly demonic and satanic. So again, what does that mean? We'll get into it.
If you're curious. The journalist directly connects this to CERN's activity. The last time CERN was turned up to full capacity, strange things happened around the world. The Earth's magnetosphere was affected, and an unexplained spiral was observed in Norway. Then it asks the question, point blank. Is there a possibility that CERN opened an interdimensional portal? What are they really looking for? To answer that, it brings in a voice from the other side. A researcher named Sophia Kay, whose brother is a quantum physicist who worked on the collider. She addresses concerns about CERN, telling, "This isn't an episode of Saturday morning cartoons. Sorry to disappoint anyone wanting to test the event horizon theory, but I think we're stuck here in this time zone for a little bit longer." She explains things in a simple way. Before the LHC was built, there were many theories about particles, but there was no method to test them outside of a computer simulation. It's very difficult to prove that certain particles actually exist. Our theories assume they do. Because of the LHC, scientists identified the top quark and the Higgs boson. These discoveries opened a new understanding of our cosmos. Particle acceleration allows us to test the fundamental nature of matter and reality. Sophia then addresses a common concern. She mentions Planck energy. This is a fundamental limit in physics. The Planck energy is a quintillion times higher than the maximum energy of the LHC. The following section has the title Black Holes and Portals to Hell. It mentioned that many people distrust CERN. Regarding black holes, two particles could create a microscopic or micro black hole if they collide with energy above a specific threshold. Sophia presents the mainstream scientific position. The prevailing theory of gravity does not predict that a black hole can actually be made this way. Any competent physicist will tell you it's impossible. It would require a total abandonment of physics, quantum field mechanics, and logic. However, CERN's own official channels acknowledge the collider might produce black holes, not the kind found in space. The official position states black hole.
Yes. So the black holes are quantum, and they exist. I mean, even according to Michio Kaku, who I do not take, again, what he has to say. This is a total, tangential comment, but everyone that got duped by the COVID vax, I'm very skeptical of anything they have to say, especially regarding science. Now, I know that's kind of a genetic fallacy. It's a fallacy on my part. But if you couldn't see through the COVID vax in 2021 after what we went through in 2020, and you got, Neil deGrasse Tyson arguing that men should be in women's sports because of gender presentation. You have Michio Kaku, who's like a progressive, was really big on getting your vax and wearing your mask. I really don't value the scientific opinions of these guys too much. But even according to Michio Kaku, it's a total misunderstanding of what these black holes that could potentially, we're not even saying that they happen, but according to these experiments, which could potentially exist, is when they smash these subatomic particles together, that it could be a quantum black hole that evaporates immediately, and it exerts very, very, very minute energy levels. So the idea that these black holes is like whatever, the Hubble telescope is telling us about, deep space and how the universe is being sucked into the gravity warp of the black hole, that's not what is happening at all.
Creation is very unlikely, but they allow for the possibility of tiny quantum black holes. According to sources referenced, such a black hole would decay harmlessly into ordinary particles. CERN states that observing this event would be a major discovery. They say it presents no danger and would be perfectly safe. The stated reasoning is clear. The creation of a black hole at the LHC would confirm theories that our universe is not four-dimensional, but indeed hosts other dimensions. This statement leads to subsequent questions. If dimensions exist beyond the four we experience, how do we know where these tiny black holes go?
So that is kind of the general presentation of the conspiracies surrounding CERN, right? And a lot of it, as we've already said, is totally far-fetched. It's not even physically possible. And even according to the physics, these black holes are not massive black holes that, some demonic entity, Beelzebub can pass through due to the conjuration. And here's the thing from an Orthodox Christian perspective about the demons passing through these portals, is that demons lack physical bodies. So from an Orthodox perspective, the spiritual war is about them attaining some type of physical form. And you know which form they attain? It's through us. It's demonic possession. So I'm even confused on what do they think happens when, Beelzebub passes through the portal? Does he just show up in his, demonic presentation? Because that's not even how spiritual warfare is understood from the Orthodox point of view. Spiritual warfare, these demons have to have a body. They can't incarnate. Yeah, exactly. They can't incarnate. They're created without bodies. So the ultimate black hole or the ultimate portal for these demons to come through is you and me. It's not CERN. Unless CERN is doing something where they're conjuring these entities and indwelling them into inanimate objects, or, some of the black magicians at CERN have Horcruxes where they're infusing them with these demonic it doesn't even make sense. That's not how spiritual warfare works from a traditional Christian perspective. So moving forward here, this guy talks a little bit, and I want to show you. He describes, now it sounds like he is somewhat of a, I don't know if he's evangelical. He's some type of Protestant Christian, because he refers to the book of Revelation multiple times when, exactly, Serbian Slav, we are the portals. We are the portals that can bring the demonic realm into space and time. We don't need CERN to do that for us. And in fact, CERN doesn't even make sense, because what form would they have if they pass through from the 11th dimension into our three-dimensional space-time continuum? There's still noetic entities. So notice that there's massive paradigmatic differences regarding this topic that need to be understood so that we can better be critical, skeptical, and also maybe believe aspects of what's going on. Penny throws in $2. No comment. Thank you very much, Penny. Appreciate it. Well, Emmanuel throws in 50 pesos. Says, wallet split, support the goal. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it. And Josiah Elleron throws in 10. Says, David, I was saying in the chat that I'm not going to listen to atheist scientists about there being possible 11 dimensions when they also think there can be 11 Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, how can we take Neil deGrasse Tyson seriously as an astrophysicist? You know, there's so many videos of him trying to explain quantum mechanics or string theory or what's going on at CERN. How can we take anything these people have to say when the obvious reality of the differences between sex and gender, they've created some type of mental circus act where they can say, oh yeah, there's multiple genders. Neil deGrasse Tyson, remember Mr. Science himself, I mean, not Fauci, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, remember his show, The Cosmos? He's going to tell you about well, he thinks that women with dicks are the same thing as your daughter and your wife and your mother. Pretty hard to believe anything a guy like that has to say about science. Mr. Fist throws in 10, says space is fake and gay. No doubt about that. And Nathaniel throws in 5, says, if you are Christian, then the idea that CERN could produce a black hole and destroy the world becomes laughable. It is. It is. But there is something strange about it. There is something kind of dark that surrounds the CERN and the whole project. And I think it's because the whole point is to come up with a theory of explaining everything. It's called an everything theory without God, without an appeal to God. It's explicitly an atheist secular approach. Now, from Oppenheimer to Edward Witten to Eric Weinstein, one of the things you can't help is that so many of the contributors, not all of them, and I'm not saying all these quantum physicists are nefarious or even, of course not. But it seems to be a lot of secular Jews are sort of pioneering and leading the forefront regarding this research. So take that. Maybe it's a worldview thing. Mr. Fish throws in another 10. The EU spending $10 billion to make haunted pencils seems appropriate. Yeah, they spend $10 billion on this thing. $10 billion on the Large Hadron Collider, and they've gotten the Higgs boson from it, which hasn't even validated their theory because it didn't come with supersymmetry. Fascinating. Fascinating, the world we live in. Okay. So let's listen to what this guy has to say. And I'm going to play you the opening. So this is part of the demonic aspect of this whole thing. Is I'm going to play you the opening ritual. The opening ritual of CERN. Very strange. And it's tied with the ceremony of the Goddard Tunnel. This is all kind of connected and is very close to each other. So I'm going to play this and have this guy, I'm going to play him speaking about it, and I'm going to play the video for you guys.
Arouses a horned man who struts into the scene, complete with eerie red lighting and smoke like he's rising from the abyss. That also included this creepy angel that flies down over the top of some of the miners, presumably representing the 9 who died. And then once the first phase, we'll call it the opening of the portal, concluded, the various religious and political dignitaries boarded the train and headed toward the northern terminus at Earthsfield. And note that the choice to begin in the south and end in the north represents the ascension of something to the surface. That is, the opening of the abyss. The primary performances took place on a massive outdoor stage in Erzfield, a small city that lies within the canton of Uri in Switzerland. Uri, by the way, is a type of extinct bison, echoing the horned theme once again. So, as the dignitaries settled into their comfortable bandstand seats, a display lit up, showing what looked like a huge rock mountainside. Dancers dressed as miners climbed this rock face, and they dug into the earth, so to speak, to unveil what was beneath the earth, a great machine formed from human arms that rotated and churned into various shapes and design, many of which resembled the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Once this opening was achieved, the miners stripped off their orange jumpsuit attire and took up arms. That is, they used staves to perform a dance routine that looked like warfare. Then once that battle concluded, a group of women joined the men, and the women were wearing only white underwear. And the entire dance troupe engaged in a frenzied display amidst a cloud of dust that simulated smoke, I guess. And it was this forensic dance that aroused a giant. So clearly, the endeavor connected to CERN is far more than Switzerland's braggadocio about an engineering feat. The connection between CERN and ritualistic summoning of a sleeping giant, the horned god of Cernunnos, or even Melkart, both are types of the rising, dying god. And Melkart slept for half the year, which may be why Elijah told the priests of Baal to call louder, because he might be sleeping. Now, as the giant in this ritual dance awakens, the dancers perform ritualistic sex rites, similar to what I believe unfolded on Jeffrey Epstein's island, if you will. And you can read our exhaustive analysis of the symbolism behind that mind-boggling event in Abaddon Ascending. Of course, I can only speculate, but I note the connection between Nimrod, Apollo, and Abaddon, Apollyon at CERN, and the history of the region are all highly curious. Apollo was worshipped by the Romans of that area, as well as the Greeks and in central France. Apollo was equated with the Celtic god Atep Omerus. These two characters were combined to create Apollo Atep Omerus, which can be translated as great horseman or possessing a great horse. In the Celtic belief, horses were closely related to the sun. The interesting thing to note is the connection between this idea of Apollo being associated with horses in France, where part of the LHC and CERN resides, and what the book of Revelation states about Abaddon, where it says, "And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon." End quote. I also note that Revelation chapter 9, after describing how these devil worshippers will be judged during the Great Tribulation period, it ends in verse 21 saying, "Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries," which is the Greek pharmakia, "nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts." Now, pharmakia is the word that describes the ancient occultic effort to use mind-expanding drugs during rituals in order to open a doorway for making contact with unseen supernatural entities.
A man named Dance Productions walks alone.
Okay, so anyways, that is this guy from. This was the fuller interview. So this YouTube channel, End Times Productions, almost 1 million subscribers. He's the one that runs this interview with Dr. Thomas Horn, researcher on CERN and ancient manuscript connections. Now, again, like I said, he seems to be like some type of Protestant Christian. And this was another very popular video that I found. Anthony Patch, and he's written multiple books. He's not really a scientist. He's kind of a conspiratorial author. And he's making all these same arguments about wormholes, demonic portals, and all this different stuff. So I'm going to play a little bit of this one on CERN's dimensional research, what they said on record, Shiva statues, stuff like that. And then we'll move on. Here's Michio Kaku. We're not going to play Michio Kaku, but this is him talking about the mini black holes and the Large Hadron Collider. And this is videos talking about why quantum mechanics is wrong. We can probably skip some of that. You guys can look all this stuff up. And then I want to get into the debate about string theory, whether it's possible or not. This was an interesting video I found of apparently some 13-year-old prodigy. So this kid is some type of physicist prodigy. You can see him wearing Nikola Tesla here. Now, again, it's coming from a 13-year-old kid. Kids have wildly vivid imaginations. And he claims that he's figured out all this stuff. He was like world renowned for some of the equations he was able to write at such a young age. And then he starts talking about how they opened up, there was an experiment at CERN, and they sort of broke reality. So we can maybe play a little bit of that, but I got some more stuff I want to get into. So we'll start here, and then I got more stuff I want to get into.
With the LHC, CERN are expecting to find other dimensions and open portals to these dimensions. If you have the image of Stargate in your head right now, you're spot on. That's what he said. Now, prophecy in numerous parts of the Bible refer to a coming day when portals will be opened and spiritual entities are going to pass through and come to the earth. This is Dr. Thomas Horn, and you are watching End Times Productions. Its stated purpose is to accelerate subatomic particles by the speed of light and force them to travel in a loop where they then collide. The secular media, rife with non-believers, scientists, atheists, and skeptics of the supernatural, have also all been in a buzz over the global discussion around CERN's seemingly paranormal associations. Although CERN doesn't publicly profess to an agenda in relationship to God or Satan, evil versus good, the spiritual realm, as it would be described by Bible believers and so on, recall what some say was just a CERN ritual hoax, which involved video footage depicting what looks like an occult ritual with a group of people all dressed in black cloaks surrounding the statue of the Hindu deity Shiva at CERN.
Now, I looked into this thing because this was a viral video claiming that it was a mock human sacrifice in front of the Shiva statue, the Nataraja, which is the dancing Shiva. It's a particular depiction of Shiva. And I found two explanations. One claim from a spokesperson of CERN, claiming that this ritual was done by pranksters that were there unauthorized and then filmed it. And so it was like some people went there to do it and then film it and make it seem like there was this mock ritual. Another explanation I found, and this was in a news article, claimed that it was actually done by CERN pranksters. So they claimed that the pranksters were not just random people that came to the Shiva statue, but these were actual employees of CERN that did a prank and performed this mock ritual, if you will, as a joke. So those were the two explanations that I could find online. Either it's totally random people, or it's actually CERN employees, but the explanation for both cases is that it's just a prank. It's just a prank.
And, well, what appears to be stabbing a woman to death in a human sacrifice. The video ends with the videographer crying out and running away. And, of course, when the film became public, experts at CERN said it was all just a joke. But all this does suggest there is something more supernatural on the drawing board at CERN than what is being admitted. Even Adam Barker of Tech Bubble wrote of CERN a while back that with the LHC, CERN are expecting to find other dimensions and open portals to these dimensions. If you have the image of Stargate in your head right now, you're spot on. That's what he said. And then he went on to draw parallels to the biblical story of Jacob's ladder. Perhaps you remember the dream that the patriarch Jacob had as he was fleeing his brother Esau. Jacob leaves Beersheba. He's on his way to Haran, and he comes to a certain place, and he stays there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he puts it under his head. He lays down that place to go to sleep. And as he dreams, it says, behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Then Jacob wakes up from his sleep, and he says, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid. And he says, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven, Genesis 28. Now, this ladder, described in the first book of the Bible, describes something like a portal from heaven to earth through which God's angels, interdimensional and spiritual beings from another reality, were traveling. When Jacob wakes up, he refers to the location as a gate, much like today's trendy terms, gateway or stargate. One of CERN's goals is to recreate Jacob's ladder, according to Barker, and to reopen a portal that is said to have existed between Earth, Mars, Venus, and Saturn when the planets were in alignment many years ago.
So again, here's my thought process as an Orthodox Christian. Why would they need the Large Hadron Collider to do that? If he just said that back in the ancient world that they could create these portals, you know, the Kaaba stone, for example, was a pagan spot where they believed there would be a portal for some of these pagan gods by the Arabs before they adopted Islam. If there's all these examples throughout history of these so-called stargates, these demonic portals, ritualistic conjuration, why do they need CERN and the Large Hadron Collider to do that today? That's the connective tissue there that I'm missing. I don't understand how they relate. Why wouldn't, if that was efficacious back then, and we still believe people are doing black magic, and even the theorists about CERN and these demonic portals also believe that there's black magic and you can conjure entities. Why do we need CERN to do that? Couldn't you just have a Satanist, a black magician, a wizard, a witch? Couldn't they just do the rituals of the ancient period? Couldn't they just do the sacrifices? We're already aware of the satanic pedophile elite. We're already aware of adrenochrome. We're already aware of the efficaciousness regarding these magic rituals regarding human sacrifice. I just don't understand why then the powers that be, if they're really doing that, why do they need the Large Hadron Collider to do it? It makes no sense. Yeah, Harry Serpano says, it's just all BS, and Protestants will fall for this BS. That's my point, is like, if you're Protestant, like this man is, and you're using all this biblical exegesis for understanding CERN, how do you not see that this totally undermines your Christian paradigm? How do you not see that the belief in these multiple timeline dimensions that they can transmutate from one to the other? Why? What? Why do you need all that? I don't get it. I don't get it. So that's where I'm skeptical, because I just don't get why you need CERN for all that stuff. Slowboy throws in too, says, hit up the goal, homeboys and homegirls. That's right, guys. Help me reach my goal. 30 super chats is the grift today. Don't make me pause the stream and do my grifting, guys. Everybody send in your tithe, send in your stream tax. Sidereal Moonwalker says, ever heard of Slade Cutter? No, I've never heard of that. Would be cool to see him on the show. God bless. Is he Orthodox? I've never heard of you. Does the chat, have you guys heard of Slade Cutter? Thank you, Sidereal Moonwalker. I appreciate it. I've never heard of the man. Adding to the counter. Well, thank you, ID Bro. Appreciate the $2. God bless you. And ID Bro throws another one. Colliders are money laundering for MK and narratives. I could see that.
Brother Jacobs, and he didn't hesitate with an enlightening response. He said, yes, out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it.
Now, again, let's look at that quote. This is what's used. This comes from Sergio Bertolucci. He was the director of research at CERN when a lot of the major research was going on. I believe he was there during the Higgs boson discovery. And so this is the famous quote talking about how CERN is acknowledging that they're bringing demons. It says, out of this door might come something, or he might send something through it. Okay, does that mean a demon? Does that even mean an entity or a being? Not necessarily. Now, I'm not even saying maybe this guy's into that stuff. Maybe he is occultic. But just from that one quote, that could just mean information. That out of these minor quantum black holes from smashing subatomic particles together, something out of this door might come, or we might send something through it, meaning probably another quantum particle. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm not even telling you what to think about that. You guys make up your own mind. I'm just saying hyperdimensional juggernaut men seems to be a bit of a stretch from out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it, meaning the smashing of these subatomic particles to create quantum black holes.
Something, or we might send something through it. And that sounds eerily similar to what Jesus said in John 1:51 when he said, truly, truly, I say unto you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Now, prophecy in numerous parts of the Bible refer to a coming day when portals will be opened and spiritual entities are going to pass through and come to the earth.
Which I find more believable that rituals be done at Mecca or in religious temples or black magic ceremonies or human sacrificial offerings. When I hear portals or the idea of spiritual warfare, I'm not thinking of CERN. It just theologically, it doesn't compute for me. So anyways, you guys get it. This guy uses his Protestant faith to talk about how he believes that essentially CERN is bringing about the pagan gods of old. He believes that the entities that they're trying to conjure are these demonic pagan gods, and that they're bringing them forth because we're approaching the end times, and that they're going to essentially be released and allowed to wreak havoc on the planet. That's the paradigm this guy's coming from. So, all right. I want to now just go over, before we dive into some more of the conspiracy stuff, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of my document so you can see, and I want to bring up some of these contradictions that I think are really important regarding all this stuff. So, CERN. We already talked about it. 1954 was created in the wake of World War II to rebuild scientific cooperation and pursue research that no single nation could easily afford. Okay. Large Hadron Collider. We already talked about that. 27 kilometers, circular tunnel, 100 meters underground in parts of southern France and Switzerland. Okay. They're trying to recreate the conditions right after the Big Bang as if they knew. Again, the Big Bang itself is a theory, right? This is like, it's reminiscent of how I feel about transhumanism. Transhumanism is talking about uploading your consciousness to a computer or software. We haven't even figured out the hard problem of consciousness. So transhumanism is operating out of a presupposition that they already know that the mind is not real, that it's just an emergent phenomenon. It's an experience we have due to the interconnectivity of brain matter. But that's not even proven. That's one theory amongst many, many other theories to explain the concept of mind or human consciousness or subjective experience. So transhumanism is the entire project is built on a presupposition of one theory that is competing with a multitude of other theories. And in the same way, the CERN and the Large Hadron Collider is built on the theory of the Big Bang, and that somehow they know the conditions similar to the moments right after the Big Bang. Give me a break. Give me a break. And so the main theory being tested is called the Standard Model. This is going to get important to when we start listening to the debates between physicists regarding CERN and string theory. What are they referring to? You're going to hear this often. The Standard Model. The LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, primarily tests predictions from the Standard Model of particle physics. So it's testing theories within a subset already within the field of quantum mechanics. This model is built on quantum field theory, which grows out of quantum mechanics. According to the Standard Model, matter consists of quarks and leptons. Forces are mediated by gauge bosons. Mass arises through interaction with the Higgs field. That's what the Higgs boson is. It's the discovery of the field of gravity that gives mass to particles. Why physicists expected more discoveries. And this is why, as Harry Serpanos and I were already highlighting, they've already undercut themselves because they said once they found this, it would come with all these things validating string theory. They said once the standard... Again, while the Standard Model is believed to be working, it is known to be incomplete. What did they not get out of the Higgs boson? A full understanding of quantum gravity, dark matter, dark energy, why physical constants have the values they do. Now, if you believe in God, it makes a lot of sense why there'd be cosmological constants. It kind of fits into place, doesn't it? When the Large Hadron Collider was designed, physicists hoped it might reveal new particles or phenomenon that would point beyond the Standard Model. Some theories predicted discoveries such as supersymmetric particles. Didn't find it. Extraspatial dimensions. Didn't find it. New forces of nature. Didn't find that either. Where string theory enters the picture, string theory emerged in the late 20th century as an attempt to solve a deeper problem. Quantum mechanics governing microscopic particles. And then general relativity, governing gravity from large-scale spacetime. So string theory is the 20th century attempt to take quantum mechanics, what we understand about subatomic particles and wave particle potentiality based on observation, with the grand theory of general relativity of Einstein. And string theory is supposed to be the bridge between the macro of relativity and the micro of quantum mechanics. That was what it was believed to do. The framework broke down when combined in extreme conditions such as black holes, the earliest moments of the universe. String theory proposes that fundamental particles are actually tiny vibrating strings. Different vibrations correspond to different particles. Why string theory became dominant: mathematical elegance, unification ambition, lack of alternatives, the relationship between CERN and string theory. However, string-inspired models predicted certain phenomenon that might appear at the Large Hadron Collider. Energy such as, again, supersymmetry, which didn't happen, additional particles. And so, anyways, you get it. The current situation in physics, the present situation can be summarized like this. The Standard Model works extremely well experimentally, gosh, I can't speak today. Experimentally, there we go. Gosh. However, that's according to the physicist. As I said, the only things experimentally that came out is the Higgs boson. General relativity works extremely well for gravity, but the two frameworks cannot be unified despite all the attempts that they've had. Now, here's the modern conspiracy theories about CERN. As I said, the portal interdimensional gateway theory, we already talked about that. Here's why some think it can be wrong. Current physics indicates that energy is required to affect extra dimensions, if they even exist, which I said the multiple dimensions haven't even been proven yet, would likely be far greater than those produced at the Large Hadron Collider. And no experimental evidence has appeared indicating portal formation. Artificial black hole theory. Another claim is that the LHC might create microscopic black holes that could grow uncontrollably. Supporters of this theory was Stephen Hawking's. The mechanism predicted to cause such black holes to evaporate has never been directly observed. If the evaporation theory were incorrect, black holes might persist and grow. Most physicists argue that naturally occurring cosmic rays like Earth's atmosphere with higher energies than LHC collisions, yet they have never produced catastrophic events. Timeline alteration, Mandela effect theory. We're going to get into this one. The Mandela effect is one of the biggest anomalies for me because almost every example I remember what they say wasn't the case. We're going to get into those just a second. Psychologists typically explain the Mandela effect experiences through memory reconstruction errors and social reinforcement rather than changes in the fabric of reality. The occult symbolism theory, as we talked about, the Shiva Nataraja, that's the dancing Shiva. It's a particular depiction of Shiva. And according to CERN, it was gifted to them by India. India gifted Shiva to them, the dancing Nataraja, to symbolize that CERN and what they were trying to do was indicative of the ending and new beginning of cyclical cycles. That's what they claim. Now, obviously, Shiva is the god of destruction within the Trimurti. Oh, what the heck just happened? There we go. And so CERN explained that the statue was a cultural gift from India. Now here's the thing that I find interesting. Oppenheimer made a quote in 1945 when he saw the first detonation of the nuclear bomb. He made a very interesting quote that says, "Now I am death, the destroyer of worlds," which comes directly from the Bhagavad Gita. So we see an appeal to Hinduism there. And Fritjof Capra, the Tao of physics, claims that Hinduism and his psychedelic experiences during the 60s was essential for his understanding of quantum mechanics and quantum physics because Hinduism believes that the exterior world and then the interior world are mirrored. So if we can understand the exterior world, that means we can understand the interior world. A presupposition that we, obviously as Christians, don't believe, but this has been used to sort of explain away the dancing Shiva statue. Again, you take whatever that means to you. This document be available for anyone at the Logos Academy. And then the God particle or playing God narrative. Again, the Higgs boson is interpreted as the God particle, but it does not unlock the secret of creation itself. Most physicists emphasize that the Higgs boson simply confirms part of the standard model of particle physics rather than explaining the origin of existence itself. So those who give more credence to the God particle than it really exists are actually doing a disservice. And then here's a real one, the technocratic global power theory. Now this one I can get behind. Some critics believe that CERN represents part of a broader network of elite institutions shaping the future of technological civilization. Now that, I believe, is absolutely the case. And again, it reinforces presuppositions that are totally diametrically opposed to a traditional pre-modern Christian worldview. In this interpretation, global scientific institutions, economic forums, large technology companies may collectively form a technocratic system guiding human development. CERN's international structure and large funding commitments are sometimes viewed as evidence of elite coordination around advanced technologies. That is one I can get behind. And then you have spiritual realm theory, multiverse engineering theory, and all this. But here's the contradictions they can't get around. Okay? So any scientific theory has to be falsifiable, right? Here's the problem with so much going on about multiverse. Multiverse theories cannot be tested. They cannot be falsified. The theory becomes metaphysical speculation rather than empirical science. And so the explanatory collapse problem, the key goal of science is explanation. However, multiverse explanation of fine-tuning often proceeds like this. Physical constants allow life in our universe. Therefore, countless universes must exist with different constants. We simply happen to inhabit a life-permitting one. Critics argue that this approach does not explain anything at all. Instead of explaining why constants have certain values, it says, well, every possible value occurs somewhere. Thus, explanation becomes statistical selection. The multiverse theory has a major problem regarding the explanatory collapse. Another one is Occam's razor, right? Is it really the least or what I should say? Is it really the explanation that necessitates the least amount of unnecessary entities? Occam's razor was, again, trying to find an explanation without multiplying unnecessary entities. Does it really do that, or does it do the exact opposite? Instead of explaining the thing that they're trying to explain, they explain all the universes that exist. The epistemological instability problem. If a multiverse contains infinite variations of reality, then every possible observation exists somewhere. This creates a problem known as the measure problem in cosmology. Why our observations should be reliable, why should scientific predictions work, why rational inference should be trusted. In extreme versions, the multiverse threatens the epistemological foundations of science itself. It's essentially mathematical Platonism without ontology. That was another one I came up with. The landscape problem in string theory is that the problem is that it's such flexibility makes the theory extremely difficult to falsify. And so it goes on. I'm not going to explain all these, but these were the contradictions I could find by looking around online. 13 contradictions. Okay. So if anybody's interested in those, again, that document will be available over at the Logos Academy. So let's now get back into our video here and move forward to... let's hear what this 13-year-old has to say. We'll play a little bit of this. Actually, you know what I want to do? Let's look at the Mandela effect. Let's look at all the Mandela effects. So let me catch up on some of these super chats, and then I want to go through the Mandela effects with you guys and see which ones you guys agree on, actually. ID Bro said adding to the counter. It's the Shanzi, throws in 2, says grift maxing tax. Thank you very much. Vigo throws in 2, says glory to God for all things seen and unseen. ID Bro throws in 2, says U.S.'s RHIC shutdown last year, by the way. I did not know that. In Mimone throws in 10, says, okay, I'll send money. Have you talked about the joint Catholic Jew and Muslim memorial ceremony held before the opening to commemorate the 9 worker deaths that occurred during the construction? I did highlight the ritual at the Goddard Tunnel, which was sort of in tandem with CERN. Is that what you're referring to? Because that's where the 9 worker deaths was sort of memorialized in their presentation. But thank you very much for the support. Neon Arcus throws in 10, says, this sounds like Hollywood movie fiction. Well, it very much is. Very much is. Nathaniel throws in 10, said, CERN, string theory, and transhumanism proves some people will believe in anything to avoid believing in God. That is apropos. It's very apropos. And Neon Arrakis throws in 5, says, John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness comes to mind with all this physics talk. Laugh out loud. That movie is ridiculous, but this is the charm. Well, thank you so much, brother. Oh, and Red Fox throws in a generous $20, says, not to derail you, thanks for the lime shrimp pro tip for fasting. Well, you're welcome, man. Thank you for the support. I do appreciate it. And over on Dono Chat, Josiah Elleron throws in another 11. Thank you so much, Josiah. He says, why would I be scared of a portal from hell when we have seen some of the horrific nonsense being done in Christian churches by the rainbow communities? True. Including rainbow pastors. Bring on the portals. Yeah, might as well. And I don't see our world getting any worse. I mean, it's pretty degenerate. We're already Sodom and Gomorrah. C-Pain throws in 3 and says, doesn't Saint Athanasius and the life of Saint Anthony portray the demons as harassing Saint Anthony by appearing as beasts? Yes. But appearing as beasts, they could actually inhabit actual animals. And from what I understand spiritually, so this is an important question, because he's getting at, if demons need physical bodies, why are they able to appear to certain spiritual men? Well, the church has explained that's due to God allowing them to be perceived. So the average Christian is not going to see the demons surrounding you. But very advanced spiritual monastics have a different spiritual battle than you and I have. And for some that are more illumined, they can actually see the noetic realm around us, and in that sense, see what the demons look like. But they still don't have a physical body. However, I have heard of demons inhabiting animals and doing atrocious things to people. So maybe that's what's being referred there, C-Pain. Teuton throws in 20, says, you should do a video on the occult connections of rocket science with folks like Jack Parsons. That would be a good one. I've talked about Jack Parsons in the, Babylon? I forget the full name of the experiments. The Babylon experiment he did with L. Ron Hubbard, where they were trying to bring forth the Antichrist by doing a sex ritual with Jack Parsons' girlfriend, of which L. Ron Hubbard then stole from Jack Parsons. But yeah, that'd be a good topic to get into. I'd definitely be open to that. All right. Oh, Silva Ogre throws in 2, says, did I send this or is this a false memory? Good question. Good question. Speaking of that, let's get into some false memories here. So a big theory of CERN is that it is responsible for the Mandela effect. So the Mandela effect is, as you guys probably already know, is the idea that there's so many things we remember that apparently didn't occur the way that we remember. So here are 50 Mandela effects, and I want you guys in the chat to let me know if these are true for you. So first one, Nelson Mandela's death. This is the origin of the Mandela effect, and people claimed that they remember him dying in the 1980s in prison. Of course, he became Prime Minister of South Africa, and he died in 2013. That one, I don't have any recollection of Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s. So, okay, but that's the origin of the Mandela effect. Here's one. Shaggy's Adam's apple. Do you guys remember this? Do you remember Shaggy from Scooby-Doo with a big Adam's apple? Maybe as he inhales a giant sandwich? So do tons of others, but in reality, it's nowhere to be seen. I feel like I do remember Shaggy having an Adam's apple, but that one's not as visceral to me as some of the other ones. Mickey Mouse's suspenders. Quick. How does Mickey Mouse hold up his pants? Answer, not with suspenders. Even if you could swear, you remember him wearing them. I feel like I do remember Mickey Mouse with suspenders, but I won't hold on to that one. Next one. Fly, my pretties, fly. When the Wicked Witch sends her flying monkeys after Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, many remember her shouting, fly, my pretties, fly, and cackling. But in the movie, she actually shouts, fly, fly, fly. That one's not as reminiscent for me. I don't know. This one, though, this one gets me angry. Captain versus Cap'n Crunch. I feel like I know for a fact that it used to be Captain Crunch. You guys back me up here. It was Captain Crunch, was it not? I never remember the cereal when I was a kid, Cap'n Crunch. It was Captain Crunch. Somebody validate me here. Yeah, Captain Crunch, 100%, right? I never remember Cap'n Crunch. Cap'n Crunch? Do you guys remember getting Cap'n Crunch when you were a kid? There's no way. There's no way. So that one I will agree with. That is weird. I remember Captain Crunch specifically. Okay. That Captain, yeah. What about Snoopy's tail? What color is Snoopy's tail? Some will tell you it's black, but in reality it's white with a small black spot on it. That one, I really don't have any memory about Snoopy's tail. That one's okay. This one, Tony the Tiger's nose. Tony the Tiger has a blue nose, not black. Many people remember the famous Frosted Flakes mascot with a black nose, probably because of the color of his stripes. I remember him with a black nose. I do not remember his blue nose. Somebody help me out. Oh, we reached the goal too. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. ID Bro throws in 2 and says, can confirm Captain Crunch and Berenstein. We'll get into the Berenstein. That one I'm convinced of. I used to read those books when I was a kid. I'm absolutely convinced of Berenstein. Next one. Sinbad never played a genie. Now this one blows me away. Do you guys have the memory of Sinbad in the movie Shazam? So this one is perhaps the most bizarre of all. Several people can attest that they distinctly remember seeing the comedian in a movie called Shazam. Many argue they're confusing this memory with the movie Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. But I swear I saw a movie called Shazam with Sinbad in it. Was it Kazam? I don't know. Where did I get the idea? I mean, I remember... I have a false memory, I guess, from being a kid and watching Sinbad in the genie thing. You know, the point where he like rubs the lamp in the garage and then Shaquille or Sinbad comes out. I specifically remember that as Sinbad. Kelly's with me. She says, I remember Sinbad in Shazam. That's what I remember too. I swear I saw it. Shazam absolutely happened. I refuse to believe otherwise. Me too. I swear that happened. Thinking of Jingle All the Way. Those are two very different movies. Maybe it is. I don't know. I firmly believe that the movie was called Shazam, and I remember Sinbad in it. Next one. Oops, I Did It Again headset. Another Mandela effect has to do with Britney Spears' famous music video. Many can distinctly remember Britney wearing a microphone headset in the video. However, after rewatching it, it's clear she never wore it in the video. So how do we all have a clear image of this? It's likely because Britney is famous for performing live with a microphone headset, and the two are merging in our heads. What? Above Man says Shazam is on YouTube? Are you sure you're not... Are you talking about Shazam or Kazam with Shaq? Let me see this. Let me see this. Shazam. Sinbad confesses Genie movie was real. What? This has to be...
I just want to say, I'm embarrassed because I've been telling people I never did Shazam, and people always walking up on me, and I'm just going to tell you what happened. Crack. I was staying in crack houses, and and I did Shazam for crack money. I knew it wasn't going to be a great movie because I have no genie skills. I think most movies, you have to bring something out of yourself, and I've never been a genie or had magical powers. It was a learning process for me as I was doing this movie, just getting into the lamp. I took a lot of yoga, a lot of Crisco oil to slide up into that lamp. So, you know, I injured myself. I had a rotator cuff injury.
Okay, so that's clearly fake. This is clearly fake. And I saw these videos that these are AI generated. These are also fake. Like the people they make these videos where they find the old VHS. At least that's what Grok said, that these were all fake. But I don't know. Okay. Okay, so Brittany had a headset. I kind of vaguely remember something like that, but that one's not that's not a stickler one for me. I'm not fully convinced. Jif, not Jiffy. So this one's the Mandela effect, Jiffy, and it's just Jif peanut butter. Do you guys remember Jif or Jiffy? BB's generated 100%. Shazam crack money. Okay, Looney Tunes, not tunes. So it makes almost zero sense, but yes, the cartoon was spelled as tunes. Huh, I remember Toons too, like cartoons. Looney Tunes. Okay. Now this one I am convinced of. It was not Berenstain Bears. I remember because I was a little kid trying to learn how to reading these books. I remember I was in, early school reading these to my mom. It was Berenstain. It was Berenstain Bears. That is one I will die on that hill. I do not remember Berenstain. It was Berenstain Bears. Yeah, our memories are correct. Don't fall for these deceptions. It was Berenstain. I remember because I was pronouncing the words. I remember. It was not Berenstain. John Castle said, Stain, get out of here with that garbage. Seriously. Yeah. Pat Fuzzy says, absolutely, without a doubt, it was Berenstain. It was Berenstain Bears. Okay, here's another one. Curious's George Tail was never there. Are you freaking out? Okay, moving on. Curious George didn't have a tail? Huh. What do you guys remember of that one? Sex and the City. While these four women were having sex in the city, the show was actually titled Sex and the City. I don't know. I never really watched that when I was a kid. But I don't know. That one really I think I may have referred to it as Sex in the City, but I don't know. I think that one's for women. I never watched that TV show growing up. ID Bro says it was in the city. I'm not sure. Okay. Febreze. You might use this stuff every day, but be honest. You thought it was Febreze, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely believe that there was 2 E's in that. Oh, Josiah said, I thought I remember that same thing. He says, Curious George used to hang from trees with his tail. That's what I thought, because I feel like I got a toy when I was a kid, because I liked Curious George, and I had his books when I was a little kid, and he had a tail where you could hang it on things. Am I confusing it with a barrel of monkeys, maybe? I don't know. Okay. Febreze gets me. I remember it being with 2 E's. Oscar Mayer? Oscar Mayer. I remember Oscar Mayer. One of the most confounding of all is that there's an A in Mayer. Honest to goodness, we thought it was Meyer. I thought it was Oscar Mayer Wieners. Oscar Mayer Wieners. Oscar Mayer Wieners? What? Josiah says he remembers Mayer. I thought it, maybe I just pronounced it wrong my whole life. I always said Meyer. Oscar Mayer Wieners. Skechers. Less sketchy than most, people have been befuddled to see that there's no T in Skechers. So it's Skeechers. Skechers? I don't know. Fruit Loops. Kellogg had been spelling fruit like that for years. We only noticed it now? Huh. That one I find believable. I could believe that one. Dave H says we're all being gaslit right now. King Henry the Eighth's turkey leg? What? For some reason, people distinctly remember this portrait showing King of England wielding a turkey leg. No, that one's not me. I don't ever remember King Henry VIII with a turkey leg. That one's not me. Monopoly Man and his monocle. Or more like the fact that he doesn't have one. This, as some suggest, might be a simple confusion between him and Planters Peanut Company mascot Mr. Peanut. For some reason, in my memory, I feel like he did have a monocle. Pikachu's tail. I swear I remember Pikachu's tail having black on it. The hyphen in Kit Kat? I don't know. Fruit of the Loom. I feel like I remember the cornucopia. I can't prove it, but I feel like there was the cornucopia. Derpayez throws in 10, says, Dr. DPH, I still have my Curious George toy from the 90s, and it does not have a tail. It's my son's now, so I see it regularly. Okay, well, there we got confirmation. Curious George did not have a tail. Curious George did not have a tail. Okay. Maybe I'm confusing that with the Barrel of Monkeys toy I had. I'm not sure. Cheez-It or Cheez-Its? I remember Cheez-It. Actually, I don't remember Cheez-Its. That does not look familiar. I always remember Cheez-It. Double stuff Oreos. So people remember double stuff with 2 F's, not 1. I'm not sure. I don't know if I ever bought double stuff Oreos. Mona Lisa's smile. There are a lot of theories about this one, but so many people have claimed that she used to have a more obvious smile. I hardly even see a difference there. I mean, you slightly see... That one, no. C-3PO has a silver leg. Even the biggest Star Wars fans in Halloween costumes get it wrong. The robot isn't all gold. He has 1 silver piece on his right leg. Now, I would have got that one wrong. In my head, he was all gold. So the boy said, I thought it was stuffed. I remember him as being all gold. Yeah. So does God, Guns, and Glory. Flintstone has 2 T's. The Flintstones and the Flintstones. Yeah, I remember the Flintstones. I remember Flintstones, yeah. Yeah, okay, I'm not misremembering that one. We've been pronouncing it without the first one, so it's really awkward now. Flintstones. I feel like I did pronounce that one right, the Flintstones. Luke, I am your father. This exchange as one of the iconic Star Wars movies themselves, however, it's another line that was never said. No, I am your father is the correct line. Cinderella's Castle. Contrary to popular belief, there is only one Cinderella Castle, and it's in Walt Disney World in Florida. the blue and pink castle in California's Disneyland is Sleeping Beauty's. I don't know. I've never been to either one. That one's not going to get me. You're going to need a bigger boat, is what was said by Roy Scheider's character in Jaws. One of the best. Okay. Oh, we're going to need a bigger boat versus you're going to need a bigger boat. Okay. Ed McMahon. We can see it clear as day. Ed McMahon handing families everywhere giant checks, but really, McMahon was never a spokesperson for the company. Instead, he worked for American Family Publishers. No. No. I remember Ed McMahon passing out Publishing Clearinghouse checks. I remember him going specifically to people's houses. Again, I have older parents, so I remember when I was a kid, we'd watch reruns of Johnny Carson. I know Ed McMahon. I remember Ed McMahon going to people's doors with ginormous checks for Publishing Clearinghouse. I remember that. Am I the only one here? Is nobody else remembering this? Josiah Elleron says totally. Is anybody else remembering Ed McMahon? I swear he was passing out Publishing Clearinghouse checks. Yeah, I don't know. Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates, is not what Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks, actually said. If you listen closely, he says life was like a box of chocolates. Chartreuse. Do you recall someone telling you that chartreuse is a magenta pink color? So many others agree with you, but in reality, it's a shade of green. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I think about that. Run, you fools. Hate to burst your bubble, but this memorable line was never said by Gandalf. It says, fly, you fools. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Nope, that wasn't a line in Snow White either. The fact the Wicked Queen says, magic mirror on the wall. Mr. Rogers' theme song. You might start singing the lyric, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, especially after seeing the 2019 Tom Hanks film. But even the movie makers got it wrong. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. A small but mighty blow to our memories. Of the world. Oh, and your favorite song, The Mandela Effect, is here to ruin that too. We think of Freddie Mercury belting out of the world at the end of We Are the Champions, but he doesn't. He sings those lines during the chorus, but not at the very end of the song. Okay. That one doesn't really shake me up. Beam Me Up, Scotty, was never really a Star Trek guy. And Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Your favorite line from The Wizard of Oz actually doesn't exist. While collective memory may recall the first version of the line, what Dorothy actually said was, Toto, I've got a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Okay. All right, well, we got enough of them. I'll share this link with you guys if you want to just for fun to go through them. We're going to get back to physics and CERN here. So let's play a little bit of this 13-year-old talking about how CERN broke reality, which he includes the Mandela effect in this, according to this 13-year-old.
Physicists can comprehend.
Whiz kid with a very powerful idea. Max Lahin shares his story in tonight's Someone to Know.
He claims to have found proof that CERN, the organization running the machine, didn't just smash particles. He alleges they tore open the fabric of existence, opening an interdimensional gateway for exactly 11 minutes. Officials dismissed the event as a minor glitch during a routine calibration. But if Max is right, those 11 minutes didn't just disappear.
Universes and infinite parallel universes constantly being created is literally flow of reality and time as we know it.
They may have rewritten the rules of our reality. This leaves us with a critical question. What world are we actually living in now? The story begins with a 13-year-old boy who wasn't spending his time on video games. Max Sidorov was finalizing a dense 20-page paper titled Interdimensional Transference via Quantum Entangled AI. His teachers described him as a prodigy who saw mathematics not as numbers, but as universal patterns, like a form of cosmic music. Having already built small energy devices and drafted theories on alternative dimensions, many considered him the world's smartest kid. But this paper was different. Less a child's curiosity and more a manifesto. At its core, Max's paper presented a startling idea. CERN had secretly developed a quantum artificial intelligence to control the Large Hadron Collider, LHC. According to him, this AI wasn't just analyzing data, it was fine-tuning the collider to make reality itself waver, culminating in the creation of a stable interdimensional portal. This portal, Max wrote, remained open for precisely 11 minutes before snapping shut. The number was not random. His equations, filled with complex loops and graphs, pointed to a specific harmonic resonance that could hold a doorway open just long enough for a transfer to occur. What was transferred, he left ambiguous. He was firm, however, that this was no accident. He claimed CERN had done it deliberately, covered it up, and ignored his warnings about the risk of breaking reality. To support his theory, Max cited public satellite energy readings, showing unexplained spikes that coincided with one of CERN's tests. While CERN explained the anomaly as a minor power surge, Max argued it was a cover story. To him, the surge was proof that the collider had bent space-time and opened a gateway to something far beyond our understanding. A teenager making claims about portals is one thing. Seeing him produce mathematics that looked eerily similar to work done by professional physicists made people pause. Was he a prodigy who had stumbled upon something real, or just an imaginative kid? Max's most radical claim wasn't just about a portal, but about what, or who, opened it. He proposed that CERN had built a quantum AI so advanced it could outthink the brightest human minds. This AI, he said, wasn't just a background tool. It was the conductor of the entire experiment, fine-tuning the collider until the universe itself began to resonate. The idea of a quantum AI sounds like science fiction, but Max described it methodically.
Well, it is science fiction. So, anyways, I wanted to bring this video up. Excuse me. I'm a little bit sick. My wife got me a little bit under the weather from the kids at the kindergarten. And I thought it was interesting because this kid is supposedly some type of prodigy in the realm of physics. And he's claiming that they have a quantum computer, that it's responsible for the Mandela effect, that it's broken reality. But again, this whole premise is built on the idea of a theory upon a theory upon a theory, which we're going to undermine here in just a few. So I'm going to let it play for a couple more minutes to get Max's whole ideas about what CERN is up to. And then I'm going to present the fact that string theory itself, which is all this stuff typically rests upon, is already being called into question amongst other physicists.
He claimed the system could process trillions of outcomes per second, making countless micro adjustments in real time. He compared it to a chess player who could see 1,000 moves ahead, not just 2. This AI, he believed, wasn't just accelerating particles. It was searching for a specific frequency that would push the vibrations of space-time to their breaking point. To understand his claim, it helps to know how the LHC officially works. It's a massive underground ring where protons are accelerated to 99.9% of the speed of light. Guided by magnets colder than deep space, these particles are smashed together to recreate conditions similar to the Big Bang.
Like they know what the conditions similar to the Big Bang. Again, it's a theory within a theory within a theory above, man. Good thing we have... Good thing we have these children to explain these complicated ideas to the normies. Yeah, thanks above, man. Okay, so you get it. He's claiming to produce equations. Now, he's a kid. But you could say, well, he's a kid, so he's uncorrupted by the institutional capture that's occurring within physics itself. That maybe that's the case. But I want to play this video because I think this is really important. Now, I don't care what you guys think about Eric Weinstein or other people in that general community. The reason I'm playing this is because Eric is one of the most outspoken people regarding the institutional capture within the field of physics. And that string theory, remember, okay, we have general relativity, we have quantum mechanics. When we get into the double slit experiment, quantum entanglement theory, all that stuff is dealing with quantum mechanics. The problem for then modern physics was, how do we bridge the macro of general relativity with the micro of quantum mechanics? String theory was supposed to do that. So for the last 50 years, that has been the dogma within the physics community, and they have essentially outed or blocked the potential of any other competing theory to string theory. And they thought that the Higgs boson would validate it. The only thing it did was potentially provide evidence for gravity or mass of particles. That is the Higgs field, what they refer to as the God particle. It's not the God particle. It's not even a particle. The whole point was to discover a field. So here is the debate that's raging within the physics community that I think is very interesting. Let's see. Dan Vicious throws in two, says, weird though, Bruce Fabrizio invented simple green. I'm not sure who Bruce Fabrizio is. Derpaez throws in 10, says, Dr. D. Oh yeah, you mentioned that one. It's the Shanzi throws in 5, says, all this stuff came about when the monoculture ended, 2012-ish. It's all a Kabbalistic gaslighting trick to get people to buy into CERN. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe our false memories were implanted. Maybe that's why we're picking it up. Maybe the Shazam thing was like a segment within a TV show that we all watched, and that's why we have that. I don't know. Could be implanting false memories or something. Josiah Elleron throws in 5, says, David, there is an Oscar Mayer video you can see from the 70s. It's titled My Baloney from a First Name. Bring it up. Okay. Let's see. What was it again? It was my... Oh. I spelled it wrong.
My baloney has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with theology and...
So, maybe because they pronounce it Oscar Mayer, I just spelt it that way in my head. So thank you. Thank you, Josiah, for validating that Mandela effect is a false memory. Okay. Luxury Identities throws in 5, says, look up Flute of the Loom by Frank West. It's a jazz album depicting a parody of the Fruit of the Loom logo with a flute being the cornucopia. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I don't want to play any music because that's a quick way to get the stream taken down. Nathan Slippery throws in 5. Thank you so much, Nathan. He says, I would be inclined to dismiss this kid immediately, but Candace didn't do a full series on it. Yeah, if Candace hasn't said it, it's not true. Queen Candace. We got to listen to our Queen Candace. Red Fox throws in 10, says, pretty sure it's a CIA PSYOP testing herd effect and gaslighting. Could be. I fell victim to it. I swear, Berenstein, the one I will die on is I remember Shazam with Sinbad, and I remember saying Berenstein Bears when I was a kid. Those are the two that I will die on. Those are the hills. The other ones I could be probably convinced otherwise. All right, so let's hear the debate raging now within the physics community and why the physics that even underpins CERN is dubious.
In fact, if you run through the inventory of the most successful ideas of the last 50 years in physics, almost all of them have a natural home within string theory.
What Brian talks about is that string theory sort of self-invalidated in the early 2000s.
People will continue to work on any given subject so long as it continues to bear fruit and give interesting results that inspire yet other avenues of research. And that's what's happened in string theory, and that's why people have continued to work on it. And when the theory and the ideas begin to dry up and they're no longer bearing fruit, then individuals will move on. And certainly some string theorists of the past have moved on to other ideas because they lost interest in this or that avenue of research.
The fact is that string theorists will always tell you that if the better theory came along, that they would immediately move to it. But when you ask them about whether they've looked at their colleagues' theories, if I ask Brian, for example, how in depth have you looked at Peter Woit's assertion that you should start from the oddity of SU3, go back to SU4 and look at a twistor theory, which includes Wick rotation at a fundamental level. I don't think Peter Woit's theory is correct, but at least I've looked at it. Very often the string theorists will tell you that they have no time. So what you start to understand is that there is a very easy set of behaviors. And
That's about right. D. Sign says, fruit of string theory is all the physicists getting grants. That's pretty much. It's the black hole we should be worried about is the black hole of physics funding.
and an equanimity that the string theorists appear to have that is not realized except in the breach. So the problem that we usually confront is that this theory plays by sociological and economically different rules. If you say, for example, that there's no experimental test of string theory, yet many string theorists told us exactly where we would find relatively low energy supersymmetry at the LHC, which failed to materialize. And so you can play infinitely the energy.
You see, he just highlighted that with the Higgs boson, they were supposed to get supersymmetry, which they did not get. Bobby Joe asks, Church of the Eternal Logos, do you have anything interesting on Albert Einstein? I mean, I didn't focus on Albert Einstein today. I was focusing mostly on CERN due to, again, can we get an appreciation for Serbian Slav Squat? Again, Serbian Slav Squat for sponsoring today's stream. Major appreciation to you, brother. I guess the most interesting thing I have to say about Albert Einstein is, did you know that he ended up marrying his cousin? Did you know that there was a little bit of incest going on there? He was romantically involved with his cousin. That's about as much as I got on Albert Einstein for today. But anyways.
The energy dog ate my energy homework. The particles are never found. If you push string theorists hard enough, they will say, well, it's actually not a theory, but a framework. When I pushed Joe Polchinski of blessed memory on this point, he said, Eric, you treat string theory as if it was a theory when I think we're just running subroutines for Ed, being Ed Witten. It's a very strange game, and not at all how science is played. So I believe that Brian is making a better point than Roger, no offense, but I believe that the point is actually that you're playing keep away according to rules that always favor string theory. It's like why you don't win in Vegas. It's because the house is always taking its vig and you can't possibly win. And so the problem here is that what sounds reasonable is reasonable at the first level. But then, I would ask Brian, what do you think about my explanation for why there are 3 generations of flavor chiroparticles? I doubt you probably even know that I have an explanation, and it might be wrong. I'm not afraid of being wrong. But my feeling is I've studied your work, I've studied your books, your PBS specials, and there is no reciprocal interest because this community secretly thinks that it is smarter than the other communities. And in general, this is in fact true. I'm not arguing it. What I am claiming is that that level of intelligence has been misspent, and it has been directed by a tiny number of individuals. String theory is not in some sense dominant at the moment, but the pig went through the python. In the 80s, there were a huge number of jobs. Many of us were critical at the time. I moved into mathematics to avoid this thing. And in fact, what happened is that pig is working its way through the python as an affirmative action program for boomers and silent generation academicians who are exceedingly good at mathematics, but seemingly not so good at physics.
And I do, of course, remember the period you're referring to, Eric, back in the 80s. And I do feel bad that some wonderful mathematicians and physicists who were not working on string theory found it difficult to get jobs and to get postdocs. I remember talking to Peter White back in the 80s. I gave a talk at Stony Brook, and he was working on some very interesting stuff, but the jobs weren't materializing in a way that perhaps he deserved, and it wasn't happening. And the problem is it's a finite resource. I wish we would just take half of the budget from the defense departments around the world and turn those into academic jobs for physicists, mathematicians, poets, literature specialists, language. I mean, that's really where the culprit is.
Amen, Brian. But the problem is that the invective that was leveled from your community towards the other communities is the part that's ignored.
See, that's the part, Eric, that I was there, and again, I wasn't in every room, so I certainly can't claim to say that didn't happen. If you were the recipient of that kind of invective, I will apologize on the part of the community, because that's never anything that one would want to do.
You've always been the most decent of string theorists, but no. As you can see, I have no problem agreeing with Brian when he's right, and he's often right. The problem is that Brian is not representative of a community that refers to others as morons, as idiots, as wasting their time, as not really physicists, et cetera, et cetera. Ask any postdoc who passed through Stanford during its period of maximum euphoria for string theory. People come out very broken and angry. I remember David Kaplan giving an interview, David E. Kaplan, because there are two of them, where he said it took him a long time to realize that he wasn't an idiot because he couldn't understand what was being done and was being told that he was somehow mentally deficient. There was a real problem. There continues to be a real problem. Michio Kaku just said, put up or shut up. I'm not aware of Michio Kaku putting up much of anything. I put something up, and the guy will not be quiet. I mean, at some level, this is an extremely aggressive, belligerent community, and unfortunately, we have the most kind and decent exponent of it. So I welcome any discussion with Brian Greene, because it's fantastic.
So what he's highlighting is people like Michio Kaku and other physicists basically have a dogma within the community, which is string theory. And string theory itself is the whole basis for, supersymmetry, all the different quantum particles we were supposed to discover in the LHC. None of it has come true. And yet all the institutions, all the physics departments are still pushing string theory. And as someone highlighted, funnily, that's where all the grants go. That's where all the grants go. So do they get paid that much? I mean, they get paid millions of dollars in grants for some of this stuff. Michio Kaku is demented 100%. Absolutely. If, for those of you who don't know, this is Michio Kaku, the Japanese guy. I used to love. I remember when I was in it was 2009, 2010. I'd listen to Michio Kaku talk about, the different type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations, and I was deeply into the whole, SpaceX, going to Mars, Hubble telescope, Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. All that stuff has been washed away. Michio Kaku is a Kabbalah fan. Interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Michio Kaku has spoken about Kabbalah? What? I gotta get Michio Kaku. What? Kabbalah.
I'm a theoretical physicist, and I like to say that I walk in the footsteps of giants like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr. I'm not a philosopher. However, I am rather dazzled by the fact that many of the basic mysteries that we find in string theory and the theory of everything seem to be mirrored in the Zohar and in the Kabbalah.
As a scholar, the most amazing thing of all is the degree to which modern astrophysics sounds like a Kabbalistic text.
I can't really think. Wow. Okay, I have never seen that video. I can't think of anything more evidential for arguing that string theory and CERN and stuff is demonic if the whole point is it's the only supersymmetry they're finding is between Kabbalah and string theory. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm not a philosopher. Seems to be a running theme with quantum physicists. Huh. All goes back to Kabbalah. The Zohar. Wow. Who knew that the Zohar was the playbook for modern day physics? What? This was a massive red pill for me. I did not know that Michio Kaku and this other physicist talked about Kabbalah as being so similar to string theory. Is God in the atom? Kabbalah versus quantum physics explain.
Can you cut matter infinitely, or is there a smallest piece that cannot be broken down any further? For over 2,000 years, the greatest philosophers couldn't agree on this simple question. But if we look at this with a bit of a Kabbalah lens, we might actually find that they were both right. You see, some argued that physical matter could be broken down endlessly. There's no limit. You can always get a better microscope, a sharper tool, and keep cutting smaller and smaller. But the other side said, that's impossible. There must be a tiny, fundamental piece that everything is made of, something that cannot be divided any further. Let's fast forward to about a century or two ago. Scientists thought they finally got the answer we've been waiting for, the building block of everything, the atom. But that answer didn't satisfy us very long. We found protons, neutrons, and electrons that form the atom. They can be separated and rearranged to form different elements. But even that wasn't the end. We found quarks, the components inside protons and neutrons. Today, physicists view quarks not as solid particles, but as disturbances or vibrations within quantum fields. They're less like physical chunks of matter and more like waves in energy. E equals mc squared taught us that energy equals matter. If matter at its deepest level is actually energy, what does that mean for existence itself? One of the greatest Kabbalists of all times, the Arizal, taught that even inanimate objects like stones and sand have a soul. Not a soul that gives them consciousness, but a life source that keeps them in existence. It's the energy, the non-physical fabric they're made of. In his book, The Gate of Unity, the great Kabbalist known as the Alter Rebbe describes how the life source of all of creation is in constant activity, infusing reality with vitality. If this energy was paused, even for just a moment, everything in the universe would vanish. It would disappear as if it never existed. Here's an analogy to understand why this happens. Throw a ball into the air and watch. The energy you just transferred to the ball slowly diminishes. As that happens, the ball gets slower and then it starts to descend. It falls. Originally, the ball had energy from you, but now it lost it, so gravity takes over. Physical matter doesn't have anywhere to fall into like the ball does. The ball needed one burst of energy and gravity brought it back down. Matter needs constant, uninterrupted energy or it would collapse into nothingness. So what exactly is this energy that exists beyond our realm of time and space? Well, we understand elements better than we understand atoms. Our understanding of atoms is better than our understanding of quarks. The deeper we go, the further we get from tangible evidence and the closer we get.
Man, look at that beard. Look at that beard. I think physiognomy never lies, does it? The insanity of pure atomism. Oh, Mojo says looks like mine. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Who knew so many physicists were getting inspired from Kabbalah? Now, I told you at the beginning of the stream how, just from my own research, so many people related to this field were secular Jews. Now we have religious Jews infusing Kabbalah into quantum mechanics.
To mathematical conclusions. We know quarks are there based on the math, even though we can't see them clearly. And here's what reason tells us. At the core of the physical lies something non-physical, a form of energy that operates on different rules than the matter we experience. But why must this be true? Because all finite beings have a beginning. They have a place where they come from, a point where they became something new that they weren't before. So how do we get all this physical matter? What was it before it existed in time and space? It couldn't have been physical because physical things require space and time to exist. Neither could it have been absolute nothing, because something cannot come from nothing. That violates basic causality. Before matter was physical substance, it existed as potential. It was beyond time and space, more like a spiritual energy.
So before creation, matter was already created with energy? What?
An unformed substance that can bring about matter. Think of it like this. A lone proton, neutron, or electron isn't an element by itself, but they combine to form elements. These fundamental particles are essentially potential pieces waiting to form something greater. The same applies to the energy in the pre-physical state. Before quarks existed as vibrations in quantum fields, there had to be a potential for those fields to exist, a source that could generate the energy that would eventually become matter. Kabbalah describes exactly this concept. A divine energy that continuously creates and sustains physical reality from a state beyond physicality. Let's explore the concept of space to gain even more clarity on this concept, because the spiritual energy isn't like protons, neutrons, and electrons that need to combine to form an atom. In a sense, it's more like space that exists on its own, even without matter. Empty space can exist independently of physical matter, but physical matter must exist within empty space. Imagine our universe void of all substance. No matter, just empty space. The space could be there. But can we do the same for matter without space? Not really. Without space, there is nowhere for matter to exist. Even if we removed all the space around something, it would still be taking up the space it's in. The energy of the universe works in a similar way, not only in a general sense, like space, but in the specific reality of each and every atom and quark. So in that sense, they are like protons, neutrons, and electrons. The particles can't be there without their essential grounding in their life source. But the life source, this infinite energy, it exists without them. Just like space can exist without matter, but matter cannot exist without space.
It's interesting how abstract he's describing God, right? Instead of saying God, there's a creator God, he keeps talking about a divine energy source that's just permeating creation and maintaining the energy fields of all things within our space-time continuum. Very interesting how Kabbalah is so similar to the physical theories of our world, which are built. As I began the stream, I highlighted this intellectual journey from the pre-modern world to the 21st century, where mathematics has essentially replaced metaphysics. So instead of, our understanding of traditional metaphysics, it's now mathematical equations that are drawn up on a board by our our elite, our mathematical elite, describing how the world really is.
So back to those philosophers who debated the infinite divisibility of matter. Both sides of the argument are right. It's true that finite, limited physicality must have a...
Both matter is infinite and not infinite. Did you know that?
a tiniest piece which cannot be divided any further. But that's because if we take a deeper look and break it down beyond that point, it's no longer physical. It's pure energy that exists beyond physical matter. We are indeed limited and physical beings, but at the core of our reality, beyond us, there is this infinite spiritual matter placing us into existence and giving us reality. But here's a question that might change everything. What happens if this energy stops energizing reality for even just one moment? Well, to discover that, click on this video, which dives.
Wow. All right. So there you have it, guys. There you have it. Kabbalah and modern string theory, as a byproduct of modern quantum mechanics, are one and the same. One and the same. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I think that covers just about everything I wanted to show you guys. One of them was, oh, this is the 13-year-old. We already watched that. This was CERN. As I was talking about the alchemical, all science comes from its mother of alchemy, and that CERN was able to actually do the thing that all alchemists desired throughout history, transmutating lead into gold. They actually did this with neutron bombardment. And that's what this article is highlighting, that they actually did make gold from lead particles. This one is about some terrifying thing is happening at CERN that no one can explain. And it was basically talking about what we already discussed in some of the conspiracy theories, is that they're opening, they're doing black holes. If y'all don't know about CERN, it's a demonic evil machine that opens up portals to other dimensions, hell, other spiritual worlds. And it brings in demons, wicked spirits, reads the caption of the post. And then he mocks them and says that it's not that. And says that it's not as scary, essentially, as people argue it is. This was the Alice experiment. Not really important. I was just doing research. It's one of the different experiments among the Large Hadron Collider. I just thought Alice, I clicked on it because I thought of Alice in Wonderland. And this is Edward Witten, very much the significantly influential string theorist. He is written as a researcher in string theory, quantum gravity, supersymmetric quantum field theories, and other areas as mathematical physics. And the same group of people. So, anyways, what are we at? 3 hours. 3 hours. I was thinking this stream today was like a 2-hour stream, maybe 2:15. Somehow we turned it into 3 hours we've been here. It's amazing how somehow I draw out these streams and make them longer and longer. But anyways, I want to give a very special thank you to Serbian Slav Squat for today's stream. I thought this was a great topic to tackle. I had not done a stream on CERN. I had not done a stream looking into black holes, God particle. And so what's my ultimate conclusion from my takeaway diving into this topic? One, could nefarious things be going on at CERN? Very much so. I think the entire enterprise of modern science is corrupted, and it's ultimately a dead end. And I very much think that string theory and the LHC and what's going on at CERN is a dead end. I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. The supposed prank of the mock human sacrifice in front of the statue of Shiva, I don't really know what to make of that. Again, we're told it's either pranks by employees of CERN or people totally unrelated. Two opposing claims I found regarding an explanation for that. And the God particle. There is no God particle. It doesn't exist. They never found it. It's a total misnomer. What they found was the Higgs boson, which is the Higgs field for the potential of gravity, and an explanation of how particles attain mass. And my big takeaway is that ultimately it is demonic, but not for the reasons that many of the conspiracy theorists claim it is. It's demonic because it's part of an enterprise that's trying to explain everything. That's what I call it, an explanation of everything, a theory of everything, totally devoid from any concept of God, and built on a materialist premise that the deeper we dive into particles, somehow that's going to explain how the entire universe works. And even the LHC and what CERN's doing is a theory about the Big Bang. The Big Bang is a theory. They can't prove the Big Bang. And so they are claiming that they're returning to the early conditions right after the Big Bang to do these experiments. Well, how the hell do you know that's the case? It's just speculation on top of speculation on top of speculation. And so the big takeaway from the stream is to realize the big abstract universal sacred canopy of the pre-modern world was the church. It was orthodoxy. It was theology. And the beginning of physics and science occurred under that umbrella. As we moved in eventually to the 18th century and then the 19th century, we see science shift to totally nullifying any sort of theological explanation or entertaining that regarding physics. And what happens is a replacement of traditional metaphysics with mathematics. Now, all of physics, all of science is sort of residing within these mathematical equations as the ultimate umbrella. And so they're getting grants, they're getting money and funding to find things that validate the mathematical equations. But think about it. We moved from Newton doing actual equations and actual physical experiments to theories based on mathematical equations where we can't even validate. I mean, as I highlighted today, you can't even falsify the multiverse theory. And yet the multiverse theory is a foundational theory regarding many of these string theorists and these opening up of the multiple dimensions, 11, 17, who knows? We haven't found any of these dimensions. Ultimately, the only dimensions we know of are 4. So we have space, and space is essentially 3-dimensional, and then 4 is time. That's why we call it space-time. It's essentially 4-dimensional reality. That is all that we know of. And so the big demonic thing is the lie. It's the lie that these enterprises keep us within. It's the lie of the materialistic science paradigm. It's the lie of transhumanism. It's the lie that technology is going to liberate us. It's the lie that smashing subatomic particles is somehow going to discover the secrets of the universe. It's all a lie. And in that sense, it is demonic. And that connects it explicitly with the opening ritual at the Goddard Tunnel and at CERN, where they're doing things that look very explicitly satanic and barbaric. And is that just sympathetic to our ruling elite? Is it part and parcel of the post-World War II world that we live in? It seems like it. Remember, CERN was created in 1954 out of the wake of World War II to create a global international scientific community with funding that no singular nation could put together. And in that sense, from the Manhattan Project forward, we have a new concept of science. It's called big science. It's called massive funding. The government research grants and programs dictating what they want the results to be. And so, as Eric Weinstein, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but as he highlighted, string theory has already been essentially disproven by its own lack of experimental results. What they said they were going to find when they found the Higgs, they did not find. And yet we're still pumping money, and institutions are still teaching all this stuff because of the beauty or the aesthetics of the mathematics. So that's my ultimate takeaway. You guys can make you may make up your own minds up regarding other demonic or nefarious things regarding CERN. For me, I don't even believe in the science that they're putting forth. I don't believe demons are passing through these portals because demons pass through us. We are the interdimensional portal that the demons are trying to inhabit. I don't know what Beelzebub or Baphomet or Baal, Moloch, Satan himself, Asmodeus. I don't know what they're going to do by passing through the CERN particle collider, the Large Hadron Collider. Like, do we really need that to explain the demonic forces present in the world? I don't think so. It's the Shanzi throws in 2, says, off to Compline. Blessed Lent. Blessed Lent to you, brother. Hope you enjoy your time at Compline. It's a good choice. Justin Henley throws in 5, says, whenever atheists imply theists aren't scientific, tell them to look up how many Nobel Prize winners are religious, especially tiny hats. Fair enough. And Vigo throws in 2, says, many thanks in Christ, Dr. DPH. Well, thank you, Vigo, for being here, and thanks for all the support. I appreciate it. So, Above Man says, Christians are born knowing demons exist. Atheists learn it and try to summon them while making fun of Christians for knowing that demons exist. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, that's pretty true. That is pretty true. All right, let me just check the Streamlabs real quick. Sidereal Moonwalker says, DPH, did you see my comment on Slade being Orthodox X Seal? No, I did not. What is his channel? Does he have a YouTube channel or something? Slade Cutter. Oh, sick. Oh, he runs Irregular. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm totally familiar with his brand. I did not know his name. Oh, my God. Yeah. Irregular Defense. Yeah, I love their aesthetic. I'd love to reach out to him and have him do a stream together. I absolutely will do that. I absolutely will do that. Yeah. And I was reached out by someone who said that John Kiriakou was interested in doing a stream with me, because I would love to have John Kiriakou is a former CIA agent, Orthodox Christian. He's Greek, very red pill and aware of a lot of the things going on in the world that we speak about on this stream. And so potentially we'll be having John Kiriakou on soon to talk about some of the geopolitics and CIA stuff. So, yeah, Orthodox Tactical Defense. If you've never seen Irregular Defense, go check it out. The website is really cool. Here it is right here. I'll share the link with you guys. I love the aesthetics of everything. I'm a big fan. So this is all Orthodox Christian tactical gear. See, there's some t-shirts. Their shirts are sick. Yeah, this is all. I'm going to share that link with you guys. So let me share the link, copy it, go back to shop. I'll share it with you guys. It's pretty cool. If you're into guns and tactical stuff, support our brother. Great company. At least it's Orthodox. And I would definitely want to have him on. I did not know his name, so I appreciate you guys bringing that to my awareness. Okay. Yeah. Check that out. All right. So hopefully John Kiriakou, maybe we'll have Slade on. I'm going to reach out like Wednesday. I'm going to reach out to a handful of people about a handful of people concerning interviews. I have like 6-7 people in mind I'd like to reach out to. So we're going to get a bunch of interviews moving in from March to April. I'm going to have a bunch of people on the stream. But anyways, a major thank you to everyone who supported today. A major thank you to Serbian Slav Squat for sponsoring today's stream. Great topic, brother. Really appreciate it. Gave me a lot to go over and refresh myself on quantum mechanics and some of that conversation regarding physics. So, Slade was recently on Father Turbo's channel. Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. All right, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. We're doing an early stream tomorrow. Everybody who's still here, hey, tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, I'm doing a St. Patrick's stream. So the goal is to try to get the stream in before, I don't even know if Jim Bob's streaming tomorrow, but assuming Jim Bob, he normally goes live my time around noon to 1, sometimes 2 o'clock. So tomorrow is my patron saint, St. Patrick's Day. So we're going to be doing, I've already done streams covering St. Patrick multiple times. I've said everything about his life that I could find. Tomorrow, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, join me at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be reading some Celtic Lives of the Saints. So we'll be talking about Celtic saints, reading St. Patrick's prayer. I'll find maybe a video or two. It's not going to be a super long stream. We won't be doing, 3-4 hours, but a way to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in a respectful way. We'll be looking at Orthodox Christian saints that are Celtic tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. So very unique time. We normally don't stream that early, but tomorrow we will. So hope you guys can make it. Happy St. Patrick's Day early. Crispy, he's over in Ireland right now, so he's already on March 17th. So happy St. Patrick's Day to Dr. Crispy Johnson. He's probably already celebrating with a pint right now. But tomorrow, 10:30 a.m., it's going to be our St. Patrick celebration, talking about Celtic saints. I got an article, an Orthodox Christian article, just listing tons of Orthodox Celtic saints. So if you can make it, I know it's a different time, early tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. And I just want to remind everybody that, remember, tomorrow as well, tomorrow we have a Logos think tank meeting specifically on eschatology and the Iran war. So if you want to be part of a conversation that we can't have here on YouTube, because of TOS, because of censorship, we are having it amongst the men tomorrow night at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's why I can't do my stream tomorrow evening. That's why we're doing it at 10:30 a.m. Start St. Patrick's Day off with some prayers, Lives of the Saints, and then at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night, private think tank for men getting into eschatology. It's an open group, so it's not a lecture. It's going to be guys all over the world talking about Iran war, eschatology, and anything else that people want to bring up. Any news, anything. So that's over at the Logos Academy. Go to school.com/Logos Academy. If you'd be interested, we'd love to have you join. More the merrier. We're having really fun, insightful conversations over there. So join the Logos Academy. If you guys want to sponsor a stream, you can do so with this link right here. Again, a major thank you to Serbian Slav Squat for today. And if you're interested in a author-signed copy of my book, use this link right here. I'll be sending all of those out tomorrow. So I'm doing the stream tomorrow. I got a one-on-one. I'm going to get all the books sent out to UPS. And then we got the think tank at 7 o'clock. So busy day tomorrow for St. Patrick's Day. But if you'd like to get a signed copy, click that right there. Purchase your copy tonight, and it'll be in the mail tomorrow because I'm shipping all of them out tomorrow. So thank you guys again for all the support. God bless you all. Blessed Lent. Keep the good fight. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for St. Patrick's Day. As always, until then, God bless.